out here, guys. This is how you check if your battery's charged.
Listen to me. You must practice. You must practice.
You, sir, are a shit pilot.
All right, pilots, arm them up. Go!
You're a shit pilot.
Hey, what the?
Yes, you're shit. You need to practice.
Hey, Steve.
What, man?
Code faster. Faster. Okay. What's happening, guys? This is FPV Spill the Tea, number 16. And today we have, as always, our... I don't think I see you here, Neil. Neil, did you say something?
Yeah, I'm here. I mean,
All right, cool. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So, as always, we have Mr. Nice, expert in everything. We always promote his OnlyFans. And what's your OnlyFans? OnlyFans/Grower does it
Mr.
twice.
Nice does it twice, so go check it out. You can subscribe.
And then we have Johnny5, famous YouTube star with 13,000 subscribers. And then we have Mr. Neil. Who we have today?
We got the one and only Mr. Alex Vanover. Hey, look at those guns.
What's up, guys?
Awesome to have you here with us today. Appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, and because also today is like a super special day, we actually have a little second intro video. Let me play it really quick.
Oh, boy.
The king is back.
Oh, I love that. That was so funny.
Mr. Neil, on the scale from 0 to 10, Mr. Neil, how much you are a Vanover's fanboy?
Oh, well, it's hard not to be a fan of Vanover. Well, I feel like there's a lot of Vanover haters. There was a day when Vanover was easy to hate, but Vanover's got the skills that it's hard not to be a fan of. And so, yeah, I think if you're really being honest with yourself as an FPV pilot, as a lover of this sport, of this game, it is hard not to respect the skills that this man has on the sticks. So it is a pleasure to have you with us tonight, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It's a pleasure. Thank you very much, Vanover, for joining. And Mr. Vanover, can you please... just the first spicy question, because Neil has a lot of non-spicy questions. So why do you think, like, at least in the past, some people like kind of hated you? They were telling like you're cocky, or like, by knowing you personally, I know it's not exactly true, but like, why do you think people?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like they're not wrong. I feel like there's a lot of truth to that, and I think that when I look back at old videos of myself, like 2017, 2018, stuff like that, I definitely was very arrogant. I think it was because I was really confident just in my flying, and that was kind of just my way of showing my I feel like I needed to show that confidence in order to perform well at races. So that's what people saw. Now I feel like that's changed a lot, where like people who actually, like you guys have hung out with me and whatnot, you realize that a lot of it is also just for show, because I just think it's funny, and I do think that, you know, for the sport to grow, you need to have personality. So anyone who knows me on a personal level knows that to some degree, it's just me playing things up, because at the end of the day, you know, I really do just enjoy flying and having fun. And that's the most important thing to me. But yeah, I think definitely back in the day, that was just my personality. And there's still definitely some of that. I mean, I'd be lying if I said that I was just like the most humble person ever in drone racing. But, you know, I think it's always been important to be myself. So that was myself then, and this is me now.
Awesome. Well, since Hyper is here, well, I guess we'll talk about camera position a little bit later. That's too early for that.
Yeah, way too early.
What?
The main question of every live stream. But sometimes we start with a little game. By the way, how old you are, Mr. Vanover?
Yeah, so I'm 24.
All right, so we can play with you a game. Who would you rather bang?
Oh my gosh. All right.
So it's this or that, or who would you rather bang? So it's like analog or HD0?
HD0.
All right. Like, do you have HD0 goggles, right? I assume you do.
Yep, HD0. I just finally converted, like, not my freestyle stuff, but definitely all racing and stuff is HD0 now.
The question Neil is very interested in, did Carl send you the goggles, or you had to buy them?
I had to buy them. I had to buy them. I feel like I could have probably persuaded Carl, but no, I honestly wanted. I think I've been through 3 sets of HG0 goggles in the last 2 years. People have probably seen mine on like FPV Marketplace. I've like tried them, lost interest, but now that I'm like back into racing, I'm like HG0 is obviously the way to go. So I just bought them myself, and I figured if I really do love the system in a couple months, then maybe I could try and work something out with HG0.
All right. What about DJI or Walksnail?
Oh, DJI, not even a question. DJI over everything.
I'm not gonna even ask why, but Betaflight or Kiss Ultra?
Ooh.
I mean, definitely for freestyle, Kiss Ultra. I've never had a better flying quad than a Kiss Ultra freestyle build. I spent a lot of time on it as well, and I really like Alex Fedor and the project he's doing. I feel like for racing, it's got to be Betaflight. There's just nothing better. We were just talking before the show about Betaflight on 5-inch quads now. It's just amazing. And honestly, I feel like Betaflight and Kiss Ultra are very, very close as well. But I do feel like Kiss Ultra from like a user standpoint is so easy to use. Like the GUI to me is kind of like a very like Apple-esque GUI versus Betaflight is very Windows. And so just like those little things and the fact that my quads always fly consistent, I'm going to go with Kiss Ultra.
So this part will be censored later a little bit.
Yes. How much is full of saying that Kiss Ultra is very close to Betaflight?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Like, I don't even know how do you tune your rates. Like, you cannot have the same rates in Kiss as you have in Betaflight. They're just like completely different. Like, it's hard to compare.
Yeah, I feel like rates in Kiss Ultra feel better to me. So like I would take, to your point, I would take like my Vanover rates that I've pretty much stuck with, at least for freestyle now, like the 1.00, 0.59, blah, 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 and put them in like Ultra versus Betaflight. And it just on Ultra, it felt like the stick feel was just like smoother. Like it felt like every time I would come back to center, maybe that's just a PID thing too, but it just felt smoother to me. But I mean, I also took the effort. I know like Alex Fedor is watching, he's going to hate me for saying this, but of course, like I always keep up to date with everything in the community. And so I put a freestyle quad about 3 months ago on 4.4 and hired one of like the really good guys in the community to help me tune it. And I got it flying really good. And we played with some of like the RC smoothing and stuff to kind of make it feel like Kiss to the point where it was like pretty close, like pretty 1-to-1, I feel like. So yeah, I mean, definitely, I feel like they're both great, and people should just fly whatever they want. I really like Kiss Ultra. The other thing too is I've like not killed a Kiss Ultra board, so I've like this quad's a 2-year-old quad, for example, with electronics. Like I haven't killed anything and flies great. So I'll stick with what works.
Nice.
All right, that's great. So racing or freestyle? You have to pick one.
That's a tough one. Like I can only fly one for like, I just like had to choose one.
Yeah, if you decide to race, you're never allowed to freestyle, and vice versa.
It's gotta be freestyle.
All right.
At this point, I think I would that's probably a tough one because I'm a competitive person, but man, the last couple of years flying freestyle has been just like kind of dedicating to it has been awesome. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
We invited the wrong guest today. That's it.
So they're close.
So for racing, speed or consistency? You have to pick one.
Oh, consistency, hands down.
All right.
For sure, consistency.
All right. So DRL team or Velocitron? I know you're not a simulator guy.
I would say I'm not a simulator guy. Probably Velocitron, I would say. I've just been flying Velocitron recently, and it's incredible. Like I'm not a sim guy, but no doubt in my mind, Velocitron. Maybe for like spec racing though, like 7-inch specifically, I'd definitely still choose DRL. But for everything else, learning to fly and whatnot, Velocitron for sure.
All right, so now we're moving to the section. Who would you rather bang, Evan Turner or Min Chen?
Min Chen.
Shames or Chris Thomas?
Chris Thomas.
All right. We had a question from Oscar Leon, and he asked Pepsi or Coke.
Oh, that's Coke for sure. Not even a question.
I agree.
I mean, come on.
Double elimination or mains format for racing?
Oh, that's a good one. I actually really wish the mains format or style of racing was more of a thing, but I definitely like double elimination. But yeah, I would say mains, honestly.
Yeah, exactly, right, Mr. Sean. I hope you're listening, Mr. Mate and Mark, two dog also, and that's it.
All right. Ivan's
Um,
like, all right, stream's over.
Yeah, I already tried to shut off the stream so many times. And the last question: Street League or Pro Spec?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm gonna go with Street League. But there's advantages and disadvantages to both. But I gotta go Street League.
Do you have a Street League one?
Not at the moment. I mean, actually, no. I have the one from West Coast Throwdown, the Pro Spec.
Okay.
I flew against you guys, but yeah, it's kind of interesting considering I've had that and I haven't been flying Street League. There's really no good excuse for it, but like something about Pro Spec, I guess because it's new, is like excited me. So I feel like I wanted to say Pro Spec, but I feel like what Street League is to me, there's a lot of things about that. Like I think okay, if Pro Spec had boost mode or like an equivalent, I might be like 50-50, but the boost mode to me is like the coolest part of anything drone racing ever in the history of forever. So I love those little things that like Sky and them are doing with that. But love both.
Yeah, but I kind of enjoy boost too. But as far as I understand, Mr. Sean doesn't agree. He said, like, I mean, there's a point that boost mode kind of like you have close racing and boost gives you a separation, and it's a little bit less exciting sometimes because of the boost mode. You don't see often quads like these for a whole lap, right? Someone hits the boost, so I can see that. But I kind of like
Fair
boost.
enough.
All right, Mr. O'Neill, I know you've been very hungry to ask your very serious questions. If you want to move to them, or I can just keep asking bullshit questions.
No, well, I mean, there's been a couple of, well, they're all, some are serious, some are fun, but this is kind of serious or interesting. We had a couple of mentions already of West Coast Throwdown. I did not make it to West Coast Throwdown in 2024, but I was there, Yvonne and I, in 2023. And it felt like there was a bit of an upset in that since you chose to be a freestyle only pilot and you're so competitive, but you finished second place at West Coast Throwdown 2023, and that seemed unexpected.
Yeah.
Look, Vanover like that doesn't want to talk about this.
Thoughts about that event?
Yeah. Well, first off, I thought the event in 2023 was really fun. I couldn't make it out this year with the date change. But I mean, I hung out with you guys. We raced Street League quads. I flew freestyle. That event is always a blast. So big shout out to Derek. You know, I'm definitely not paid to say that, but I think that with the freestyle competition that year, I was pretty bummed because like the 2 years before that I won. So I felt like I was going to like pull a hat trick out. And I felt like I had a very good run. I think now that I think immediately afterwards, if like you guys were around me or whatnot, I was like pretty frustrated that I lost because that was like the first time I had like lost in freestyle. And you know, I knew, and I always would like tell people like, well, yeah, freestyle is subjective, but there's a point scoring system, so it kind of makes it slightly less subjective. And I felt like compared to the other run that it just didn't make sense to me. But then I think like as time went on, I realized that, you know what, the reality is with freestyle competitions, like you have to almost throw the points out the board and you just have to fly the most entertaining flight possible. And I feel like the 2 years before that, my flights were more entertaining, where I felt like this last, in 2023, I felt like I tried to be extremely technical, like I would be in one of my YouTube videos versus like just trying to entertain. And I felt like that kind of bit me. That is kind of what the scoring system was based off of. So I feel like with like anything, there's room to improve. But at the same time, like the person who won, I felt like really, really deserved to win. So I don't think that it was like unfair in that sense. And if anything, it's just like motivating. And I think that if there are going to be more freestyle competitions, like the one that they do at Road Riot Rampage that we put on, like we're like trying to refine the scoring system there to basically make it to where there is as least amount of bias as possible, where it's like you get specific points for like either specific tricks you do or things you do and stuff like that. So, you know, it is what it is. Like to my point though, it's subjective. I think to win a freestyle competition, if I were to do one again, you just got to like put the most entertaining run out possible, like keep people on their toes. I think as a racing pilot background that I can definitely do that as well.
But so like, do you think that his freestyle was better than yours?
I felt like, man, I feel like my run was slightly better. I felt like it was slightly better. I definitely would, without a shadow of a doubt, say his run was more entertaining. Like ATEC FPV is the person we're talking about. And if you watch his run, it very much kept you on your toes because he was flying so fast. And like, you could tell his like risk was really high. Like everything he was going for was really high risk. So it just, again, maybe he got more points for that, and than I did, and maybe he lost out on technicality, and I got more there. I don't know. I know it was extremely close. It wasn't like it was like a big wipeout or anything like that. So.
I think Neil is relogging because he wants to be an admin of the.
Sure.
Yeah, he'll be right back shortly. So while I have the opportunity, I see the Ice Cheater in the chat. He says it was a blast, and Mr. Ice Cheater, we had a very good racing against him with the Street League at this West Coast Throwdown. It was very fun. And I just want to remind guys, please like this video, share on your social media, because, we'll like likes, especially Johnny5. And also, while I have the opportunity, Johnny5, what do you think? Should we Mr. Neil is back. Neil, you're the main guy today. Should I show, because I have the videos from West Coast Throwdown 2023, like Vanover's run and the first place run. Like, do you want to play it?
Well, I mean, I feel like we could, but then I think that Alex's point to it just needs to be more entertaining, and it's already happened. Do we really want to rehash that? Maybe that's not the best.
People can go watch it. People can go watch it. I encourage people to go make their own judgment on it. But
you can put the link in the chat, maybe.
Yeah. But then people stop watching our live stream.
Yeah, go watch it
at the end.
When it's all over.
Yeah.
After, and then come back and comment.
Yeah. Because honestly, I'm there I made my judgment, and I think Vanover definitely won. I think there was no questions. Sorry, even though the guy, I think his name is Sane, right? Who got the first place? Shane, yeah. Yep. And he's a nice guy. He even gave me his bike to ride, his electrical bike to ride.
That's a good way to get Yvonne. If anybody wants Yvonne to be your friend, own an electric mobility device and let Yvonne ride it, and he will be your best friend.
So I don't want to, talk shit about people, but we're just talking about, just freestyle, who did better, just like racing, who did better. If someone lost in racing, it doesn't, he lost. You don't talk shit about person.
I feel like, do you think that because you were a 2-time champion of the event, that maybe you were scored on a different scale?
I try to not let my head go there. I've only found myself to get caused a lot of hurt and pain from going. I did do some of that. When I was making the drive home the next day, I was just in my mind thinking you're replaying in your mind what you could have done better and stuff like that. And to your point, Yvonne, the one thing that I love about racing, and it's when you ask the question, racing or freestyle was a tough choice. And I'd say freestyle because I just the love of flying new locations, and that kind of style flying is just I started with freestyle. Most people don't even know that. And then I went to racing because I wanted to get sponsors for freestyle. So and then I fell in love with racing. But to that point, the one thing that I love about racing is that the stopwatch never lies. And so that is something where if you are the better pilot or not. It's that simple. But I try not to let my mind go there. I think that like I said, that's why I shout out Derek in the beginning. They run a great event up there, and I feel like the judging could definitely be better. I feel like if there was one thing I gave them a piece of feedback on was that they need to be more. They need to explain in the beginning of the competition, not just the categories they're judging, but how they judge them. So at Rampage, we explain okay, the category for flow, this is how we're going to judge that. So that way, at least the contestants had an understanding, because when I talked to Derek afterwards, he was kind of explaining it to me very different than I understood it, the judging for that year. And if based off what he said, I would have more focused on having an entertaining run versus trying to try and maximize my flow or technicality. So yeah, I'll leave it at that probably.
Yeah.
Spill the tea.
I like that.
Spill the tea. Yeah.
Spilling all the tea. Good question.
Yeah, well, it's a good event. It's interesting. Just Brandon and I, it's the Olympics right now. Brandon and I were watching gymnastics during lunch today, and we were wondering, because I don't know how it works. How the hell do they judge that? And it's got to be so hard, as a judge, to be able to see these particular moves and then make some judgment about it. But at least in gymnastics, it's been happening as a sport for hundreds or thousands of years, right? People just been doing flips forever, and the Olympics have been happening for a long time. And as far as judging a freestyle competition, there's been I don't know, maybe even still just a single digit number of total official freestyle competitions in the history of the planet. So it's like, while we think FPV is young and FPV racing is young, well, like freestyle events are even less developed, or so it's definitely there's a lot of room to improve there, like you said, and like well, it'll be interesting to see how that develops. But West Coast Throwdown, super dope event for sure.
But I kind of think that probably people don't, because gymnastics I think is more close to actual racing because they have so much strict rules. Like how many points you get for these, how many points you get for these, what if you do this mistake, how many points they subtract. I think it's more close to racing than to freestyle, honestly. And if you start, even if you start doing that for freestyle, it is not a freestyle anymore. It's like,
I would say maybe figure skating, because they judge figure skating. It's like a similar...
Yeah, but figure skating too, you got same amount, like certain amount of points for certain amount of turns when you flip. I don't know the rules, but it's also very strict. Like there could be some, anyways, right? So that's a freestyle, guys. That's a freestyle. Yeah.
I will say, I just want to say, like, I would love to see more freestyle, like high level events. I think one of the goals that I have for Vanny Style is to put on a big, like a giant freestyle competition, kind of like, I think I'd love to do it with a race at the same time, like at the same event. So maybe an IO or something like that, if I can like talk to Chris Thomas and everyone. But I have some ideas that I've been working on for like how to do a freestyle competition that takes a lot more of the bias out of it. And who knows if it'll work, but it'd be kind of worth a try. Because I do think that one thing that is cool about, like, when I have people drive up to the Dallas field and they've never seen a drone fly before, and they're like watching us race around the track, it's incredible for them, but it's hard for a lot of people to like fathom themselves like being at that level. But like, I know guys, one of my Vanny Style sponsor team pilots, Austin Inspired, he's been only flying for a couple of years, just won the Rotor Riot Rampage competition a couple months back. And he's come so far. And, I feel like it's kind of like skateboarding where you can at least envision yourself like getting to a high level. So I definitely think that it's a completely different aspect of the sport. I think it should be included. And I just think no one's really put a lot of time and effort into like trying to really refine it. That's no insult to anyone who's done a competition. That's just to say that like someone who's actually competed in it has a different perspective than someone who just has like only hosted or run it. So I'd love to see it happen more. And I think 2025 it will.
I think it'd be dope for it to happen also in conjunction with the race, because I think like that racing pilots are very skilled, and I would love to see more hardcore racers compete in a freestyle competition because I think racing pilots are very talented. And
2024 freestyle competition was won by a racer, by a guy,
and that doesn't surprise me. And like so was 22 and 21, although he chose to say that he was a freestyler. Like also one.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Vanover, what are the chances that you're gonna go to West Coast Throwdown 2025?
Pretty high. I'd say I really was sad I couldn't make it out this year. So I'd really like to make it out, and definitely race and freestyle at that event. All the specs, 5-inch, 7-inch, freestyle, you name it. So.
Mr. Neil, what about you?
It depends on the dates, but I want to go. I mean, just without knowing when the dates are, I want to go. It's a dope event.
Well, it's the same. I think it's the same dates, like the same weekend.
Well, so like now, then it depends on what the IO dates are, because because West Coast Throwdown is an awesome event. IO is my #1 event of the year, and but I think West Coast Throwdown is a tight #2. Like it is, like after IO, it's the coolest event you can go through in the nation. Yeah, and I can say that with like 100% certainty.
Yeah,
Mr. Vanover, we had a little, like, since we're talking about freestyle competitions, we had a weird question sent us by Anonymous, and he was saying, I don't know what he was talking about. Maybe you can like put some light on the question. So he said, freestyle contest with Patrick Watkins. What happened?
Patrick Watkins. I feel like I know that name, but I'm gonna have to like rain check on that. I genuinely have no idea what he's talking about. He has to be more specific.
All right.
So,
there we go.
Fair enough.
I didn't know either.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like I know that name. But
I know the name, but yeah. All right. All right, let's move on.
All right. You got to ask the next one.
Say it again.
Like you got to ask the next one.
All right. Yeah. So let me put Neil on the screen. So we're moving to your a little bit of professional career, a little bit.
Okay.
So Neil thinks he's totally capable of doing your job in Hollywood and all this fancy flying with the big drones and filming. And many other
Nice.
racers and freestylers thinks the same, right? They're like, oh, I can do that too. Like he did fly under the car, I can do that too.
Yeah.
Like, what would you say to them? Why you are doing this job and not them? How did you?
Well, I think to answer the last part of that question, why have I gotten those jobs and not other people? I think that a lot of it is just timing. I mean, 2019 won DRL, 2020 COVID hits. And at this point, I'm like 20 years old trying to figure out what am I going to do for a career? Am I going to go be an airline pilot? Am I going to go to college? Like, what am I going to do? Because I felt like while drone racing is exploding, I felt like it needed more time before I could make it a career. And by that point, I'd be like 24, 25, and you'd have guys like freaking Minchan and whatnot dominating the sport. So with all that being said, so I started working with a production company called Ether Films, which turned into Lightcraft. And that was just how opportunities came. Like we would do spec projects for no money whatsoever, just like getting our foot in the door, flying cinema cameras. Like the only other person doing it was Johnny FPV. And so I felt like Johnny and I were like the two people to go to. And so Johnny was doing it was like one of the first movie that came out on Netflix, Red Notice. That was like the first movie to really use cinema FPV. And then I was doing ambulance. So that opportunity came because a couple different people, actually, believe it or not, Catalyst Machine Works had a big part of making that happen because they reached out to Catalyst Machine Works, I believe, to kind of like figure out who would be, you know, good FPV pilot. And then Catalyst was working with us at the time. And so that's how that happened. So I feel like, you know, to the other part of it though, flying under cop cars, all that stuff, I definitely think that being a racing pilot makes that a lot less challenging because you're used to being able to fly through tight obstacles and stuff like that, but also being able to fly under pressure. But I think that's the biggest thing that one of the biggest things people don't realize is that it's not just you don't get a lot of tries. Like that was a one take thing. And there's a lot of pressure to do those shots, and you have to put yourself in my shoes. Like this is the beginning of my career. I can do the shot. It could make my career, or it could just I could just stay where I'm at. So I felt like every movie project I've been on has been just like a step further ahead. And so I don't know, like I've seen racers go into cinema, and if I'm just like being perfectly honest, I feel like I haven't been like incredibly impressed because it's different flying a cinema drone. There's most of the time they don't stabilize the footage. Those drones don't fly as locked in as a 5-inch quad. And being able to do stuff first try in unfair conditions, right, is very challenging. So, but to anyone wanting to get into it, I just encourage them to do so because if you have a racing background or a freestyle background, you have a huge advantage over the guys who are getting into the industry with the sole purpose of just, I want to fly cinema. But definitely
do these
don't
guys,
underestimate it.
like the guys who are hiring, do they understand that the racer or like a good freestyler has an advantage, or they're just whatever?
No, I don't think so. But I also don't necessarily think that that's the case though, because I've seen, I can't say names, but I've definitely seen directors who have hired pilots with more pedigree from racing over some guys who only just got into the industry 2 years ago and have like just learned to fly. And I've seen those guys actually fly better in harder situations than the racing pilots. And I've seen it the other way as well. So I think the biggest thing is for the racing pilots, the biggest disadvantage that they have coming into cinema, and this is one thing I felt like I had an advantage of because I was also freestyling, is the ability to be creative when a director's like, just freestyle it and doing that smoothly without making the movements too jarring. And I think that's kind of like the big point that I was going to is like racing pilots, like you got to learn to fly really slow and steady because everything's blown up on a big screen, right? So like the movements in ambulance, they look super fast, but like if you were to like, I felt like when I was flying the drone, I was making them really slow because I knew, okay, this is going to be blown up on a big screen, right? So I feel like there's a lot of, there's also like a lot of set maturity that comes, like most people, I'm going on a rant, sorry. Most people who get into the FPV, most people who get into FPV cinema from like a racing freestyle background, most of them don't have camera knowledge, set experience. Like the biggest challenge I had to overcome, like on ambulance, was the fact that I didn't have any of that. I'd only worked on big productions for a couple months and nothing, like going straight into a movie at 21 years old. I was the youngest person there pretty much by far. And a lot of people didn't respect me outside of my flying skills because, I didn't know how to like expose a camera properly. I didn't know all the set lingo. And so like those things, like I feel like now I could teach those to a lot of people, and I've already kind of started to do that as well on the side. But yeah, I just think that there's a lot more angles that people who are racing and they look at these cinema guys and they're like, I could do that. And they're right. You could definitely do that. You could probably fly it better than some of those guys do. But most of the time, there's a lot more involved. Like directors want to hire people that have a cinema eye. They want to hire people that really have that extensive camera knowledge, because most of the time on set, you are not flying under cop cars. You are not flying through 5 by 5 foot gaps. You're being asked to frame a shot properly. And unless you have the discipline and maturity to do that, like they're going to want to hire someone else. And I've seen it go both ways. I've seen them hire pilots that, they shouldn't have hired because, they didn't have the racing skills or like that ability to fly a drone tight. And I've also seen it the other way where they should have hired someone who has more of a cinema background. It definitely goes both ways.
And how does the hiring process goes? Like, do they require, hey, bring your freestyle quad and let it like show us what you can do, or like?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, so for example, it's coming out next year. So, and I know it's like it's already somewhat public knowledge, but a new Superman movie is coming out that I worked on, and we went and did. So actually, the reason we even got the call was because the director or producer, the director is James Gunn, by the way. So he directed like Guardians of the Galaxy. He saw an FPV Komodo freestyle video that I did. And that was like, okay, we want that. And so we went out to Atlanta and we did a demo for basically the production team to show them like what we could do. They put us in certain situations, flying inside studios with cables and things hanging and stuff like that. Said, okay, do this, do that, do that. And then we got the project. So, yeah, I mean, it really depends. So other times they just hire you because they know your experience and they see your resume. But when you get in initially into the industry, you have to expect that you're going to have to do a lot of those like demos and stuff like that.
Mm.
Yeah, and if you watch Potato Jet's video that he did, like he's a camera tech channel, camera reviewer. He has about 1 million subscribers. He got invited to like press day for the ambulance movie. And he asked Michael Bay, who's the director, the same guy that did like all the Transformers, all the Bad Boys, like a lot of big action, explosion, exciting type movies. And he's over there asking them questions about Vanover, right? And so they all get excited because they're used to the same questions all day about, what do you think about your hot actress coworker? Like the same stupid questions. And they're so excited to talk about something else. And Michael Bay was like, oh yeah, I wanted this like 19-year-old drone pilot because he's the champion. He's the best in the world. That's the one I want. So yeah. Of course, like Alex is saying, like if you have those skills, it's just one more thing to your resume, right?
Yeah.
And now that you have the one job, it's going to lead to more jobs. And so there's not a big coincidence that a lot of former champions, a lot of DRL pilots, if you look at all of the top movies that have drone sequences in them, they've all pretty much been in the mix. And one thing that I wanted to ask you that I've always wondered, and I've heard other people talk about it, is that there is a lot of overlap between racing and freestyle, but some people say that racers are used to dealing with pressure situations, and I would imagine on set is very high pressure, and they're used to being able to like do it once. Whereas like sometimes freestylers are more like a skateboarding mentality where it's like, I'm going to try it 100 times and I want that one good shot where I do it right. But on set, like you can't be like that. You have to get it right. Is that kind of the same?
Yeah, I mean, a perfect example in the reel there was like with Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber's on set for 1 hour. Like 1 hour. People may not realize like 1 hour to do a lot of shots. So the drone, like while that was definitely a big part of that project, I got one battery. And there was a list of shots and angles that they needed. Like there was no not getting that. Like that was just not like I feel like one thing to that point though is, and I feel like I've seen this mentality with some people and then they've lost big work continuously because of it, is that and then maybe this is just because they come from a racing background, but people sometimes feel like they can get a second chance. And I feel like racers, it's like outside maybe like the very, very top guys, to your point, I feel like some people have it in their brain like it's okay if I don't win this race, or like it's okay if I don't get it first try. But you have to go in like the way and we talked kind of about like my personality and like how I've been arrogant and stuff like that. But like part of what has made me very good on these things is that I convince myself before I shoot for Justin Bieber and stuff like that, like I'm going to get this and it's going to look awesome, because in my mind, failure is not an option. It's just not possible. It's not just me I'd be letting down. It's the fact that I'm making money for my wife and I. It's the people who are on my team whose like jobs depend on me doing my job. And it's like, there's a lot on the line. So to that point, yes, I definitely feel like, being able to get stuff done first try is super important. And to Yvonne's point too, like a while back, like Michael Bay had like noticed that I was a DRL world champion. Jordan Temkin, who was on that DRL world champion, Blake Sams, Nub, former DRL pilot. Like, I do think that a lot of like the big projects, they do look at those resumes, but there are also a lot of projects where I'm like, man, like you have no idea who you're hiring, good or bad, right?
Sure.
Like you should really look, but those guys don't understand though too. Like, is it DRL? Is it multi-GP? I should be looking at like, what is it? Like, I think that guys kind of recognize DRL the most because it's like the most prevalent. But I also like Michael Bay, like, he watched my 5-inch racing, like multi-GP style and was like, whoa, this is way faster and impressive.
We got a cool question from Dean Drones. You set multiple drones like a team race for, you just plug them in and...
No. I mean, yes, I'm sure you could, but like, someone also asked this question. I can kind of build off of that one. Like, can you give us an example, like what it's like on set? And like the short summary is, you're usually up at 4:35 in the morning. Let me back up even more. Like the day before, you prep all the gear. So I usually prep about 4 drones with 2 Komodo cameras, like spare lenses, batteries. I'll go out. I always fly the drones, even if I know that they work, just to make sure there's no vibrations, there's nothing crazy happening. Go out on set, usually early in the morning is the call time. You get out there. If we've done a scout day, you kind of know what you're going to film, but we don't always scout the location. So then you have to kind of like go on the fly with, what you're going to do on the moment. So we usually come prepared with different drones. But then like when we're actually going to do a shot, especially if it's like a car commercial or movie where there's multiple different things involved at the same time, like the drone gets put up and you might be hovering for 90 seconds. We try to minimize that, but like 90 seconds or 2 minutes. And then you do a 10, 15 second shot and you land. Like there's just no time if something goes wrong to be like, we do usually keep a second drone ready, but it's not quite as simple as like we just power it on and go. I've thought about it though, because it'd be awesome. And like, I think there's certain situations, like in the past when I've done live stream work for championship off-road back in like 2019, 2020, I set up multiple drones like that to where I could just land one, plug the other one and boom, because like it was live filming. So I needed that ability to be fast, but not really on like a movie or something like that.
So, Mr. Neil, basically that was a very nice way to say that no, you can't do it.
No, you can do it. You can do it.
I don't have the resume. I mean, like in the short of all of that, what I gather is that, and it's not like so particularly news to me, but like it takes having done work to get work.
Yes.
And it takes some really dope resume to get good work. You can get, I mean, like I have some work, but I don't have the best work because I don't carry the resume. Like, yeah.
It's harder now.
It's hard to believe, like, I mean, like, well, I came from completely different industry, like I'm a software developer, but like in software development, resume just don't count. Like everyone has a good resume, but you gotta like confront with a guy who is hiring and like show him that you can do something.
Yeah, well, I guess it's probably resume and then like social media work or presence, which I kind of suck at. Like I'm
social
a really
media is big.
Powerful pig figure in person, but I am lazy in online appearance. And
Mr. Vanover, are you lazy?
I can be lazy, but I don't consider myself a lazy person. I feel like I have too many things that I do in my life to be lazy. I'm lazy at attending races, but besides that, I'm. But Seth Griggs owes me $20 for coming on this live stream too. By the way, I don't know if he's watching, but he owes me $20.
Yeah.
Like,
and he'll owe me another $20 in 2 weeks as well.
Well, we've talked a few times about. I'm going to skip around on questions a bit because we've talked a few times about like intensity or like nerves, and you've had some interesting opportunities in all your different careers, and I want you to just like rank these in level of intensity or like nerves. So would be like Hollywood flying Michael Bay style stunts. We talked about that. Like racing on DRL, like top level multi GP, like champ style or big IO style race, like a multi GP style race like that. And then like chasing storms with reed trimmer and trying to get in the tornado.
Oh,
Like,
good question.
Like where do you put
Where's those
the
rank?
4 of those in like
The
stressfulness?
most, yeah.
Oh man, that's tough. I would probably say that, and it wouldn't be ambulance specific. At the time it would have been, but
Sure.
probably filming for Emancipation or probably Emancipation with Will Smith. It was like the first shots on those reels. They look the easiest, by the way, and that's the irony we can go into. But that was probably, that and the ambulance are like number one most stressful thing I've ever done flying a drone. Like
Okay.
hands down, the pressure was. I remember going to those movies thinking like I've won DRL, I've won multi GP. Like I can't. Pressure is not going to be a factor, and I was wrong. It's a much different thing when it's like, again, you can lose a race and it sucks, but like you can lose a race and it's okay. Like you can't fail in these situations unless you want your whole career to be gone. And then I would say probably like winning. Well, it's hard to say because I've only won multi-GP champs once, and I feel like the year that I won it in 2017, it was not like I was not stressed when I won that race, and that's probably why I won, because I was so just like happy that I made the final. I was not expecting to make the final of that event, so like once I was there, I just was like, that was also back when like finishing was like really important, like consistency, versus like now. And even like in I think back to 2018, 2019 versus Evan Turner, like then like Evan really pushed the tide of like consistency, but also like maximizing full throttle. So I feel like that level of pressure was like probably would be a little bit higher, probably closer. But then like DRL is a lot of pressure too. But honestly, like storm chasing, DRL, multi-GP, I feel like those all kind of rank in like the same boat. Like storm chasing stressful because you don't get many tries, so you like. But the flying the drone is not hard in that sense. It's just like being in the stressful part is actually not related to the FPV. It's like being in the right place at the right time. And it's an emotional roller coaster like nothing else I've ever done. But yeah, definitely the filming stuff for some of these movies is like the most stressful part. But I think like what I always do is I fly my best under pressure. So like I need pressure and I need like, especially like rivalry and stuff like that to like really push myself to fly the best I can. That's just how I work.
It's
so
kind
for
of
like a single
go ahead.
moment, I had this kind of ties into what I was gonna ask, which was for the single split moment, Joe Scully calling your name as you're punching full throttle around the corner, or Michael Bay calling your name when you're in the air on a shot.
Michael Bay for sure, no question about it.
Sorry, Mr. Scully. Sorry, Mr. Scully.
There's no doubt. I mean, with all respect to Scully, it's not even a fair debate.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, we got super chat. Our regular sponsor, Dean Drones. Check out his batteries. They're also being sold from 533. And Mr. Dean Drone says, super excited to see Mr. Vanover back. Thanks, Limon Grove Johnny 5 for setting this up. Well, thank you very much for $99.99 super chat. This is awesome.
That's awesome.
So, I'm kind of, so when you film like for Hollywood type of stuff, it feels like the budgets for these movies are like millions of dollars. They're like making cars and stuff. And then you said you have only one chance to shoot. I would imagine like you should have like at least 3 of these like big 20,000 drones with cameras. Like if you break one, there's another one, and you know, like no, like how does it work? Why you have only one chance?
Well, you have one chance not because we only have like one drone. You have one chance because every time they jump that cop car, it's probably cost them $100,000. Like not because the car is worth that much, but because of the time on set. Like every hour, every 30 minutes they spend shooting that scene is 30 minutes less than they could be shooting every other scene that they have, like the hundreds of scenes they have to do for these movies. So time is money in Hollywood. And so I think up at that, until that point, like, okay, one of the cool things about Ambulance was that while someone could argue that the FPV shots were overused, which I would agree with, although I loved it because as an FPV pilot, I love seeing it in the movie. The cool thing was that FPV was more important to Michael Bay on that movie than it has been on any other project I've been a part of to this day. So like, even with that though, we still only had a little bit of time dedicated to do these shots, right? Because they need to capture 6 different angles of that, even though they ended up using our angle of that, you know, cop car jumping or whatnot. So that's really the reason why. I would agree with you, like logically, like doesn't make sense. You put this much time and money into something, why not get it right? But I think that's the expectation, is this movie has like the best people in all of the cinema industry from every different position and angle. and they're bringing on the best drone pilot. And if the best drone pilot can't get it first try, what good is he here for? Right. And that's the nature. I think that Hollywood is extremely brutal in general, and it's extremely brutal in FPV. I've definitely lost 1 or 2 clients because I didn't get something first try, or I messed up and some other guy didn't. I'm not perfect by any means.
I was about to ask, did you have any fails in while doing all this Hollywood stuff?
I would say not on big projects, thankfully, but I definitely I think Emancipation, I brought that up. That was interesting because I just had filmed Ambulance, and Ambulance is all high pace energy, straight into another movie. We were talking about my ego confidence through the roof, trying to, at this point too, I felt like I was trying to compete against Johnny FPV as well, and I realized very quickly that Johnny's always going to kind of be the GOAT, and I'm going to be if not on the same level, right there. But going to Emancipation, and I do the first shot, and it's flying through this encampment, and it's very FPV, right? And it was sick. It was so cool. I thought it was awesome. Everyone around me thought it was awesome. And Bob Richardson, who he was the producer on Inglourious Bastards and stuff like that, some really good movies. He comes up to me and he's just all these guys over here, they're doing this to you. I'll tell you when the shot's good. Do it again. And that was probably the most humbling moment of my entire life, because my ego went from 100 to 0. I mean, it was good. I honestly am very thankful when that happened. And I did it again. And he's he wouldn't even tell me what I was doing wrong. That was the frustrating thing. So I'm just so then I go out there and I try and fly even more precise through stuff. It's nope. What he wanted was no side to side. This is before gimbal FPV drones. He wanted no side to side movement. And so basically it was either you do that, which is the way he was describing the shot, you have to bank to turn, at least a little bit, right?
Yeah.
He's you either do it or you're off the movie. And that's hundreds of thousands of dollars for the entire team that I'm with lost, because of me. They're all doing their part. It's time for me to do my part. So that pressure was insane. But that was an example of where I feel I came very close to I adapted. I improvised, adapted, and overcame. And one of the things that came out of that movie, I feel was the beginning of gimbaled FPV drones being really used on Hollywood sets, because we literally built a drone for that movie to carry a gimbal, and it was sketchy, but we built it in 2 weeks because we realized that no matter how well I flew smoothly, there'd be no way possible to match the standard that he was asking for. And there's been other times where and I try and do as many pre-production calls as possible with anyone I'm going to work with to make sure that I bring the tool that they need for the job. Because sometimes they think they want an FPV drone because they hear about FPV. What they really want is an Inspire 3. Because then you get out there, those are the kinds of jobs that I've not got a recurring client. Because I'll go out, there's this car commercial, and they were no, we don't need a previs call. I knew that was red flag number 1, but they're paying me, so whatever. Come out and we're going to do these shots. We want FPV. It's got to be FPV. I'm do you want Inspired? No, we want FPV. Okay. And I kind of had the feeling that they wanted Inspire. So we get out there and they're okay, can you lead the car like this? And I'm and then can you do a top down like this? And I'm no, I can't. So I always try and offer a solution. So I offered him a solution that ended up making a commercial, but it wasn't what they wanted. And then the director and the producer, they felt the pressure of the client because the client's there in the van, be no, we need this. And it's well, I can't do that. And you're trying to be as polite about it as possible, but you're this is why we do previs calls. So that way we bring the right tool for the job. So I feel the only jobs I've really lost have not actually necessarily been because of skill or lack of just I didn't fly good enough. It's mainly been because of a lack of communication. So for anyone getting in the industry, my biggest recommendation is have just a pre-production call. Push for it. Most of the time they want to have it just to get to know you anyway, but make sure that you understand what they're wanting. Make that very clear, because the last thing they want and you want is to show up with the wrong tool on set. And honestly, I feel in Hollywood, 50% of the time, what they really want is just an Inspire 3.
So basically, for Hollywood, that's normal to use Inspire 3 as a drone. Is it camera quality is good enough?
Oh yeah, the AI3 is I would say it's one of the best drones I've ever flown. That thing is, if you guys haven't flown one, it is so much fun to fly. You're flying in, it's DJI 04, so it's even better than 03.
Yeah.
The latency is as fast as 03, which again on that style drone is incredible. and it flies for like 30 minutes. It's fast too. It's faster than a Racer 4, than a Street League drone. Like, it's
what about
faster.
camera quality, like the
Oh,
recording?
8K,
But like,
gimbal.
is it way better than GoPro?
Insanely better. Not even. You
it's
can't even put
it's
them
like
in the
Komodo. It's like Komodo level almost.
I would argue in a lot of ways it's like better than the Komodo.
Yeah.
And like, how much does this drone cost? Like,
$32,000.
All right.
So it's not.
All right.
Because
Yeah.
the Inspires I know, they're like $2,000.
Right. And honestly,
No,
I feel like
no.
the problem for the FPV cinema industry, Troy actually brings this up too in the chat, and it's true. And I love flying the i3, so I'm fine to do it. But the reality is, when the i3, the Inspire 2 was like not very good, like compared to FPV, it wasn't fast enough. But the i3 now pretty much can do. Yeah, I would agree with Troy. Like 85% of the shots. Like the only instances are where like they need dives or like wraps around of objects or cars. Like the i3 is such a capable drone, and it's so quick and easy to use on set. It's way less stress than FPV. Like, I love it. So like I chose to embrace it because I realized that it wasn't going away. The only problem with what the i3 has done for the FPV industry, and it's kind of why I've also taken a slight turn to my career right now, is that I think it really brought down the value of FPV prices in terms of day rates, because what you can get with an i3 was like, again, it would cover most of what you could do with an FPV drone for half the price or less. So it is what it is, but I think definitely it's something you just got to embrace it.
So we had a question from AK maybe 10 minutes ago. What's your favorite shot in all this Hollywood stuff? What was your favorite thing to film?
Oh, man.
Was it this when you fly under the car? I don't know.
It would have been the car up until I did a project. It was actually a passion project called 26,000 Days. It's pinned on my Instagram too.
Yeah.
It was
let me share my screen.
chasing a Piper Cub. Like, okay, so my favorite real airplane in the entire world is a Piper Cub. And Eric Tucker is one of the most legendary pilots I've ever seen in my life. And this passion project where we went through a lot of trouble to get a lot of waivers done to do this. And then to go out in Northern California and film this, definitely like the most, I had the freedom to do whatever I wanted to. And the project, I highly recommend you guys go search up 26,000 Days. I think Henry Bahal, like the director, is going to be one of the biggest directors ever pretty soon. He just has, these shots are just awesome. You have to skip to one. He cuts the engine midair, and he's just like, and this one's cool too, like water skiing and stuff like that. But that was definitely like that filming and like those days, those shots are my favorite shots I've ever gotten. So skip ahead one more. I think it's like, this one, let it play. Yeah, this right here. This took a lot of time to get a waiver to fly this high. This shot right here, that movement, like you can't get that with any other tool ever in the history of forever. You can't get that with a helicopter. You can't get that with another airplane. The only thing, like what makes that so exciting for me is like, okay, I think FPV can be controversial, but I think that FPV is overused sometimes. And so it's definitely exciting to see it in a use case where it's like, that was the only tool for the job. So
this is sick. Yeah, this
cat's going crazy.
That's really cool.
So all this you shot from the ground, like you are on the ground.
Yeah, I'm on the ground. That was 2,500 feet up above the ground when we started.
Wow.
None of us
are you flying right
that's
there?
ever been that high with the drone. None of us. No one else.
No.
Imagine doing it with 399.
Imagine doing it with a Komodo. Like in my Komodo and my drone. That wasn't a light craft. That was my stuff. That was for free, no paid. Like skip ahead to the last photo. I know, like don't look at me, just look at the drone. But like
we're all gonna look at you.
You can't really see it. Oh dang it! But like it's okay. There's actually another photo on my Instagram somewhere. But basically, it's here. I click exit and then scroll down a little bit. It's keep going. Okay, it's that one on the ice rink. That was the drone I was flying. Left.
This.
Left. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Okay, that was the Banshee I was flying. That's like Johnny's Spec.
Nice.
That was what I was flying, and literally I would use 50% of the battery, and that's the only time I ever HV charged batteries in my life was for that project.
We have a question from the chat. How long does it fly?
That was flying on. So generally, that drone will fly for about 3 to 5 minutes. It's actually really good, but in that case, I spent like 50% of the battery just getting up to altitude, and then. Obviously, like even though I was descending, like I was full throttling that drone to keep up with that airplane. Like there would have definitely been a better setup, but like I got the call for this 2 days before it happened. Like that was how it worked. So, yeah.
Wow.
Nice.
This is sick. Yeah. This is...
FPV versus CGI. Like, when does it make sense to use CGI versus FPV in film? Do you think, like, do you see a day where FPV is no longer needed? Like, so you kind of said like that the i3 is taking some of the jobs from FPV. Is CGI going to take the rest of them?
I worry that it could, to be honest. I'm gonna have a cat in the background, guys. I'm sorry.
Good.
This cat is like just thinks there's some ghost on the wall that it like has to get, and so just anyways. Yeah, my wife's gonna like remove said animal. It's gonna. I'm ADHD. It's gonna distract me. Thank you. I think that CGI could. I feel like unlike other parts of the industry, it's not. We don't have like a union to protect us, so it's definitely. There's possibility for it. I mean, even in like some FPV shots, there is CGI used on top of like the FPV shots. So I don't know. I feel like on the big movies, they're always going to have the money and desire to fly a real lens, like actually fly glass, as I like to say. But I definitely think on what's going to make it hard for FPV pilots trying to pursue this full time is that a lot of the smaller jobs, which is your majority of the industry, because there's only 6, 7, maybe 8 movies a year, and out of those 8 movies, maybe 4 use FPV. So you're talking a very small amount of work for hundreds, if not thousands, of pilots. And CGI is probably going to replace a lot of like the. I hate to talk about it because it's kind of depressing. Because I mean, I love obviously flying FPV, but I feel like the only way for that to not happen is for somehow. I don't even know if it's preventable, but like maybe for like the FPV pilots to unionize, like who work in cinema or something like that. I don't know, but. Who knows? It's a great question. I've like lost sleep at night over it, to be honest, because I would hate to see the industry die because of it. But I mean, I've also seen from like people, not like stuff publicly, I've seen people who are in Hollywood who are like playing with CGI FPV shots, and it's like, man, it looks so good. Like it looks really, really good. So who knows?
But do you already see this trend that CGI like? I know there's probably not too many jobs in Hollywood with the flying drones, but do you see this trend that is slowly being replaced by CGI?
I don't know if I see it yet, because the reality is it is super expensive, and I think it's more expensive than just to hire an FPV pilot. But if that changes, then obviously it'll, yeah, even Troy just said it. It's like, yeah, I think that'll change if the cost can go down on it, which it will. But we'll see. Who knows? Like I said, I think the purists out there are going to want to fly a real camera, a real lens. And I think there's going to be a lot of instances where it's going to be just way too expensive to use it. But maybe for just like your very generic like landscape shot with an FPV drone, like that's going to get. That's even with normal drone as well too. So like that's not just like FPV anymore. You're talking the whole industry.
Yeah, I guess you are seeing that with like some of the more big budget films that have come out in the last few years have been like, we're going to use real cameras, like we're going to shoot with the IMAX, and like they're kind of going. Like almost.
But is it because of the community pressure, or just they want it? Like,
I think for a while there was a lot of overuse of CGI, and there was a lot of if you watch like a lot of video review channels or movie review channels, you'll see them kind of talk about a lot of people that used to use a lot of practical effects, like James Cameron, like on some of the earlier Terminator movies or Aliens. And then like the more recent iterations of all of those movies. And if you look at side by side, even something like Star Wars, right? For some reason, like Frank Oz using the puppet as Yoda looked a little more real to you because you could actually see the movement, the shadows, than like the prequels of the Star Wars movies. So there was that push, that swing back to the other way. And then video, like shows like The Mandalorian were using that video wall so that everything could be captured in camera, and then the things behind them were not green screen, but they're actually being projected. But then that's also sort of like computer generated because they're using like Unreal 5 for the environments. But I think a good signature or a good hint would be like the super ultra big budget movies, like Superman that you might have mentioned earlier. If that's using FPV shots, then like they want it in camera, because a CGI shot there is going to be super, super expensive. And so I'm hoping that it'll keep swinging towards that way, because it really does look better. And if you look at a real shot 50 years ago versus a CGI shot from 15 years ago, the real shot still looks better, right?
Yeah. Man,
Yeah,
I
but
can't
what
wait
about
on the-
CGI now?
Yeah, that's true.
It's improving, but to get like
not
the
there.
super high end, it's like Troy said, it's super expensive. If you
So,
want,
like,
if you want medium
it
grade,
it looks good
Yeah.
today, but 15
Right,
years ago, the
right.
CGI looked good to us 15 years ago.
yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean? Like, it was like, oh, it looks so real. But if you watch
Right.
now a movie that's 15 years
Yeah.
old, you're like,
Right.
oh god, that looks like shit. But like when you watched it 15 years ago, it looked dope, right? Like it looked
Right,
real.
yeah.
I
And
remember
so
also
it's
like a
interesting to think like, oh, it looks so good today, but as we
Right.
all move forward and get more used to whatever's coming, like I don't know, like how's it gonna look then? I
for
guess
some reason we also in the chat we get a lot of questions about AI. What do you think about AI generated videos, Mr. Vanover?
Oh boy, AI generated videos. I mean,
Yeah, like
I don't have an opinion, guys. I don't know. Listen, I don't know if I have an opinion. I'm
just ask them to
gonna
hold up their hands, then you'll know.
yeah.
Like,
right. I don't know, man. That you got you got to ask someone else that. I have zero opinion, so I'll just ramble. So
I'm a pilot.
I fly drones and
Yeah.
play pickleball. That's about it. You know.
I kind of think that we will need at least 50 more years before it can generate videos that like we enjoy actually. You know.
I don't
And
know. I think that's long.
It's long, man, but I think like we kind of came to some sort of a top in AI, you know, because we like advanced a lot, and then it's gonna flatten out now. That's what I think, you know. And
well, we got a super chat coming in that we can't pass up. It's going to get us back to talking about racing, and that's never going to hurt my feelings.
yeah.
So from Zenith FPV, shooting in with that $69.99 Canadian big ones. Would Vanover come to Canada to challenge Gab 707 and Killian in the multi-GP Canadian drone racing?
Oh, the
match?
Killian will be there.
I didn't realize Killian was
August 30th.
Yeah, 5-inch and 7-inch spec racing.
I have to show up to this first race.
That's right. Yeah,
He's got to
you
work.
may have to give old Seth this $20.
You're asking me. Yeah, you're
too many
asking me.
races.
I won't be able to make that one. It does sound interesting. I'm literally like looking at my calendar, but no, I won't be able to make that. Definitely sounds fun. I'm just focused right now on Missouri. Like that is truly like the focus of my mind, and what's beyond that, like I'm not even thinking about it. I'm just focused on Missouri, and then we'll go from there.
I like it. Well, let's keep talking about racing, but let's take a little like trip back to the 2017 champs. So this came in as anonymous, but like if anybody remembers, and I'll give a little refresher, 2017 champs, that Alex, you said earlier that you were surprised that you made it into finals. And it was a bit of a surprise. Well, I don't know, because it was a measuring contest that got you into finals. Like, and take us through a little bit of that story from your point of view, how that happened.
Yeah, so for context, Chance Hartman, free fall FPV. Probably many of you guys don't know him, but you racing OGs would. One of the best guys. I feel like he was favored like at the event to win. Like once people saw him show up and fly, like I think he qualified first. He definitely was the fastest pilot in terms of lap. He had the fastest laps on the track. I think I was like qualified third or something like that. And we got in the semifinal together of a losers bracket. It was like top two go to the final. And honestly, all Chance and I had to do was just not race each other. And because Nert crashed, Gil, 32 bits of Gil was literally a lap back. And this is before whatever the rule was, the NASCAR rule or whatever.
The NASCAR rule, which kind of was born out of that race too.
Which was born out of that. So we would have both moved on. And we were just racing. And I think anyone who has raced, regardless of what level you've raced at, but especially if you raced at the highest of levels in drone racing, will know that it's one thing to, in your mind, like, okay, I'm behind this guy. All I need to do is finish second and not take the risk. But man, when I love racing, like you don't want to lose, especially in my mind. I had Ivan NV Astro was spotting for me at the time, another OG name, and he was really telling me like before the race, he's like, you need to win this race. Like, I know you can finish top 2, but you need to win this because it's going to give you the confidence going into the final, which I can now speak back looking at my entire drone racing career and say, yes, like it absolutely does. Like finishing second and going to the final, knowing that you lost to the guy who you're about to race for the championship is a big mental hurdle to come over. Like, not that you can't do it, but if you get a win, you like know you can do it. And so basically back to the story, I'm racing and we're kind of trading back and forth. It was one of the best heats, I think, at the event. And I went, it was one way or another, like we were like trying to pass each other. The end of the final lap, going into like the sky gate, and we collide, and my battery just unplugged. Like I just dropped dead. And his drone actually like kept flying, but he couldn't like recover it, and he went into the net. Like if the net had not, let's just be clear, if the net had not been there, I would not be the 2017 national. I would not be. Like, well, we don't know for sure, but like it's very likely that I would. There's a lot of ifs. If my battery had it unplugged, like et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
But the reality is, he went into the net. I dropped dead on the floor, so I was closer to the next gate. And talk about nerves, though. Actually, that might be because after that, that's why like that was like the greatest gift I could have ever gotten. Because I was so nervous. Because at this point, I wanted it. Like once I realized that like Chance was the one for me to beat. Like no disrespect to everyone else, but like that on the day of like it was Chance and I felt like. And once I realized like if I make the final, like I think I was like starting to picture myself there at this point. I was so nervous because I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if I was going to be out or not. And so they measure taped it. It was pretty obvious because his drone was in the net. Mine was closer to the next gate. But I moved on to the final. And honestly, the best thing that could have happened was that because the pressure was like lifted. I didn't feel invincible. I just felt like the most stress I could go under was the waiting. Because like we said, the stopwatch never lies. But in this case, you're like, what's going to happen? So like once I had made it to the final, I was there. Like there was nothing I could lose at that point. And, you know, call it destiny or whatnot. But I mean, it's those kinds of things that happen at events that decide them.
So you won that measuring contest, which then got you into finals, which then you won finals and made you the 2017 multi-GP champ. I'll just highlight Troy's comment here because it kind of goes where I'm going. Like one could argue that got you and Gil on DRL because Gil also made it to those finals and he got in DRL. So the question, I guess, to you is like throwing a little spice in there. Would you be the Vanover that we know today had you lost that measuring contest?
Ooh,
I don't know. I don't know if I would have been. I might have. I feel like the races where hurt the most are the ones you learn the most at. Like I've become a better pilot. Like I'd have to skip way ahead, but I feel like the race that two races that really hurt me the most were 2018 and 2019 multi-GP champs. Like I felt like 2018 when Evan beat me, there was a big rivalry, the greatest drone racing rivalry ever, no question about it.
That was a fun one to watch for sure.
It was a fun one to watch. It was one thing to lose to him there. It hurt a lot, but then I got a DRL. Like I was already in talks with DRL, so like I already had a contract offer from them before that race. So I felt like that kind of hurt me a little bit because if I had gone into the race with like I wanted to win, don't get me wrong, but like it was one thing going into it knowing that like I have a spot in DRL secured and I don't have to actually win. It was just like a bonus to win at that point. Versus like Evan really wanted to prove to everyone that like he wanted to win it. And so he was the better pilot. But that one still hurt me. And so I went into that DRL season, granted without Evan Turner, and was like, I got to go out here. And that was like probably the most arrogant version of myself because once I was on DRL, I realized that like, man, like these guys are really good and this type of racing is different. But if I go out there and just train like I've been training for the last 2 years, like I should be the favorite to win. And so I like convinced myself that, wore that on my shoulders, came in. And then 2019 multi-GP champs, which was actually later that year, I wanted to like really get that one back over Evan. Like there was like, unlike 2018 where I feel like there was almost like a built-in, not excuse, but like, okay, if I lose this, it's all right. 2019, that was not the case. Like I really, really, really wanted to get that one back. I honestly didn't even care about, I think Evan would probably say the same. I don't think we cared about winning the championship. That did not matter. It was about beating the other person.
Yeah. And
for anyone who remembers that race, Evan was the Iron Man going into the final, and I won the first final. And I'm very big on mental game, and I like executed perfectly because again, I lost the race before with him in the semifinal, so I felt like I had that disadvantage. But I was so prepared mentally for that. I've been telling myself for weeks, like, listen, you're probably going to get to the final. He's probably going to be Iron Man. It's just likely to happen. It's Evan Turner we're talking about, one of the best. So, like, you have to be prepared for that and be ready to accept that and throw it, like, put it all on the line. Like, just give it everything you got. And I did. And I still lost the championship. And that one really hurt because I'm gonna really quickly, as I continue my ramble, I'm gonna like say nice things, and then I'm gonna like jokingly say a not nice thing. But BMS Thomas, I think one of the greatest ambassadors that we have in this sport, one of the nicest human beings. If you guys have interacted with him and his dad, if there's an ambassador for the sport, Thomas is definitely one of the guys. No doubt about it. He'd be on the top of my list. Him and Sean Taylor, two nicest guys ever. That being said, so in the second race, Evan crashes like immediately, and Jordan's telling me this. And in my mind, I'm just dialed in. I'm like, this is it. I'm getting this one back. And then BMS Thomas, who like to all the respect to him, but in the 2019 champs race, Evan and I were the two to beat. I felt like we were like clearly faster than everyone else by just a little bit. And then Thomas just decides to fly the race of his life for whatever reason. Just couldn't let an American have it. I've rewatched that DVR like a million times. When you're flying 5-inch quads, you're not thinking. They're just too fast to think. Like, that's why I love spec racing. But all that to say, Thomas went for a pass, and we collided, and I like exploded a prop basically. So I like couldn't take back off, even though Evan was like bouncing off of every single gate on the course, and then got like reviewed, won, and then he won the final race. And you know, he's a mental monster. But that race, back to my original point, I feel like the races where you learn the most are the ones that hurt the most, and that one sucked. That one, like, I had a bad attitude after that race. I think became more mature though, at like realizing like I can either choose to have a bad attitude and pout about this, or I can like just use this as motivation to get better and actually like be honest with myself and analyze what I did well, but also like where I needed to do better. And then when I went into 2021 DRL with Evan with real drones, I was able to like get those wins back over him, because I was like, again, like I feel like racing, you kind of have these like roller coasters, right? You have to lose to get better. Where I feel like when you win, like, yes, you can get better if you're like Minchamp, but like beyond that, you know, you need to like, I feel like defeat is like the key ingredient to success. It's like, for me, it's like that extra fuel to the fire. So big
man, you like just describing this everything so tasty. I just want to go race right now.
Yeah,
maybe even
right?
Troy listening to this, he will be like, "Oh heck yeah, I'll go back to
Troy,
racing."
come back, Troy. Well,
Yes.
like I like the confidence. I like some of that arrogance. If you watch, you know, Drive to Survive on Netflix, and any of the top 10 of the 20 drivers, if you ask them who's going to win, there's no way they're saying anyone else but them. And there's like this politeness with drone racers, and I appreciate it because everybody is friends. There's not like millions of dollars on the line yet. And so I love the part of the hobby where if somebody's quad is down, like I've seen Evan, I've seen Yvonne, I've seen Neil, and like every other top person like helping their competitor to get to the line because we all want a good race. And I love that part of drone racing, but I kind of want to see some of that competitiveness that like that was my favorite thing to watch about Vanover, you know, like during your reign or whatever it was. I remember a couple of years after that, we had a lot of top pilots at the night spot, and I asked all of them, who's winning this year? And everybody was like, I don't know. Like they all wanted to say like somebody else. And I'm like, really? Like I have two champions here, two other people that are like in the top 10, and nobody's going to say themselves. Like, what's up with that?
Yeah. No, I think that it's hard for people to understand. Like, I think every top athlete to that point has to do whatever it takes to win. That's just, if you like look at Killian at IO, like Killian, and I'm not trying to say Killian is an arrogant individual at all. Killian is also one of like the nicest people I've ever met. But like I called it, by the way, on the morning of Facebook. I said these are going to be the top 3 guys in some order, and I got it right. Like and when I watched Drobot win, I was really hopeful, to be honest, because I love Drobot and he's been flying for as long as I have, and I really wanted him to finally like pull that out of the fire. But I could just watch Killian's face through the live stream, and you can see like as a top competitor, I can see it. Like if I was calling that on the commentary, I was saying it in the chat. I'm like, Killian's going to win this race, because you could just tell on Killian's face that he was either going to crash trying or he was going to win it. There was no, like, he was ready to grab it. I'm going to just say it, like, grab it by the balls and take it, because that was he just had that. He was in his mind. Maybe he wasn't like saying it or anything. Like, for me, I kind of wear it because it helps me. But yeah, like, Killian was definitely in his mind thinking like, I am going to win this race. Like, he had that, FU mentality. Like, I feel like all those guys, to your point, Johnny, like with Drive Survival and not, you see it. Like, you have to convince yourself that you're the best. I maybe not. I could be proven wrong, but I feel like when Evan goes out there, when Min Chen goes out there, when I go out there, we all convince ourselves that we're the best in order to perform at the highest of levels. If you don't, like, what are you even doing there in the beginning? Why would you waste your time? One of the reasons I haven't raced in the last couple of years is because, like, it was like I didn't have, like, A, the motivation, but B, I'm like, if I'm not going to go out there and compete for a championship, then what am I doing? Like, I can go to a local race and just fly for fun or fly a track or hang out with you guys in Houston. But if I'm like, I'm not gonna, like, waste time and money and, like, sponsors' attention and stuff like that to go out there and, like, not believe that I'm gonna be able to win this event.
Mm-hmm. So, man, that's everything, like, the powerful talk here.
It is. It is.
What was? Yeah, go ahead, Neil, please.
Well, no, I guess so. Just we'll go to the next question in just a second, but we all get to see again the Vanny versus Evan Turner matchup in Kansas City. It's coming in just a couple of weeks. And, like, I'm going to be there, Yvonne's going to be there, but you guys are going to both be there. You're both going to be racing in a brand new Spec, and I'm quite excited to see how that race goes down. Because
but Hyper is not going to be there because he chose to. He decided not to go. Yeah, Mr. Hyper right there in the chat.
Get it.
Yeah, Mr. Vanover. So, speaking about that race that's coming in less than 2 weeks, who are you most concerned of losing to?
I'm not thinking about losing to anyone. Like, I feel really mentally locked in. Might just, like, some people are like, man, it's just like some race in Kansas City, Missouri. Like, this is an important race for me. Like, don't get me wrong. Compared to other times, like, I am really going there to have fun and just, like, really test the waters of, like, my abilities. Like, so I feel like it's one of the few times where it's nice because I don't feel like I feel like some people probably expect me to go out there and at least either win or, like, do top 3. But, like, I honestly have no expectations. Like, I just want to go out there and just really see where I'm at and, like, get my feet wet in the water again. So there's really no one in particular, but I think everyone's, like, kind of saying Evan versus Vanover, and I think that's possible. But I don't know what Johnny's cracking up about. I can't wait to hear it. But he's on one right now. But I think that a lot of people, and I've been training with him, so I feel like he's not being talked about enough. Amari, I feel like, is the one to beat at that race. I could be completely wrong with Evan, but
he's so good.
Yeah,
Amari with a Spectrum. I mean, I still think, like, granted, Killian won the Pro Spec, but I rate Amari right now as the best Spec pilot in the world. That's just based off of facts and based off what I've seen.
You're far off on that.
I think that we've been racing a lot together. We practiced recently, and I was really, like, having a hard time keeping up with him. And, like, we were, like, very competitive. We did a live stream. But yeah, he's going to be tough to beat. So I would say that, I would rephrase the question to say that I'm not scared to lose to anyone because I don't have that. I don't feel like I have to wear that expectation anymore. Like, I have to go out here and I have to win or I have to do this. Like, I don't. I could not go to this race. Like, I've not gone to many races in the last couple of years, but I'm going because I do feel like I can win the race. And so while it's with spec racing, I don't feel like it's a situation where it's mine to lose because everyone's going to be really good. It's just going to come down to typical racing, like who's the best on the night, who has luck on their side. And I think everyone should watch it because I think what MultiGP is doing is going to be exciting and it's going to be amazing racing. So that's what I'd say to that.
True that.
We got the Quad Doc in the chat with $99.90. Thank you very much, our regular fan. And we surely fans of you, Mr. Kevin, also.
Yeah.
Howdy. Mr. Quad Doc, we missed you at I.O. I always look forward to facing off against Quad Doc in the old person's race.
He was ready to crush you, Mr. Quad Dog.
Yeah, he wasn't there this time.
Yeah, he was scared or something. I don't know. Yeah, certainly miss you at I.O.
So, Alex, what was the best racing advice you've ever gotten? Like that really made things click.
Ooh.
Share some of it with us here.
Share your secrets.
I feel like it was from my dad, and he's not a racer. He's a world champion billiards player. I think mental game. By the way, like my dad, it like frustrates my mom because my mom like got onto me in 2019 watching DRL. She's like, "Why are you so arrogant? Your dad was never like this," which is true. But one thing my dad, I remember, taught me like way back when was that kind of on the note of you have to like you learn the most from your losses. Like that was one thing. Like, and I've talked about that. But another thing that I think is really important is that you most of the time at races, like 80% of the time, you're not going to fly your best. Like you can train, everyone sees the DVR, and this is why like I don't even like to make predictions that often about like races and comparing myself because like DVR is one thing, and like flying a track with in an unofficial event is one thing. But my dad taught me like 80% of the time you're not going to perform your best at the event. That's just the reality. You see this with all kinds of sports. So you have to, instead of like trying to win, you have to try to not lose, essentially. And so you have to fly, in my case, with that mentality of like, okay, like some days you're just going to be on it. Like, and that's the fact. Like, so if you're on it, like, you know, that's great. But most of the time you're not going to be. So you have to fly with this mentality of like, how do I need to fly to be able to perform the best right now and not lose this race and in turn win? So I think that, you know, for me, that's consistency. Like if I don't feel like I'm like on one, where I'm like, I feel like I can't quite get to, you know, 100% comfortably, I'll fly 98% consistently because I maximize my chances of winning or not losing that race by doing that. And sometimes if I feel like I've just come off of a heater, I'm going to try and push again because I'm not going to, okay, I'm going to throttle it back now because I don't want to crash. Like, and sometimes that's helped me. Sometimes that's bit me in the butt. But in general, like you have to go with the momentum. And so if the momentum's like not good, then you have to hit the reset switch and like fly to not lose. And if the momentum is really strong, then you have to keep that energy going as long as you possibly can.
So, like, if you are ahead of Amari at some point on the course, and then there's like a big gap, are you going to slow down a little bit, or are you going to keep pushing?
Of course. I mean, you got to fly smart, so, but yeah. I think the idea though is like, and I would be shocked if that were the case without a mistake. Obviously, like given the spec and everything like that. No, the reality though is just like, again, you have to fly the best that you possibly can. And sometimes that's going to be consistent because you may not be just like on your game. Like we're going to be racing at 2 a.m. I think people aren't like talking about that enough as a factor. Thankfully, like some of the DRL guys, we've flown in the middle of the night a lot. So, you know, it's something that I'm used to. And like one of the things I'm going to be doing starting next week is keeping myself up late to like keep myself sharp and flying at night, because I do think that you have to like get your brain acclimated to that. It's not like I need to like fly to Missouri to get like acclimated to the weather there, but just like I'm trying to do my practice sessions starting at like 10 p.m. to like 3 a.m. now, because that's the level of dedication I have to this, but B, because I want to train like how I'm going to fly. And I think a lot of people are going to overlook that, and they're going to be flying tired. You know, they're gonna be trying to drink Red Bull to like keep themselves awake and stuff like that. So
that's true. And a lot of people are like, because it at least me, and I imagine other people are too, like it starts late in the day. So a lot of people are gonna travel all day Friday and then try to like practice and qualify Friday night, right? And so that's interesting. I hadn't even really considered that, but like it is going to be a difference in from our normal sort of schedule. And so just like expanding on that, so that was your best FPV like racing advice, and I really like that. But coming in from the chat, like what's the worst racing advice?
The worst racing advice I've gotten is, again, I know I just kind of talked about like you got to push, like or like when you're like flying really well, you need to like keep pushing. But the worst advice I've ever heard, because I've never listened, I've tried listening to it, it doesn't work, is, at least for me, is that like these, and this is just like, you guys go to these races, you see it. It's like, come on, never lift, give it everything, have everything you got. Like, I just think that in certain situations, like with the qualifying, if you're like already locked in, it's one thing. But I think, again, you got to race smart, man. Like, people don't race smart. I see it even with 5-inch. Like, I see it with spec racing. People are like, oh, I lost because I got midair. And it's like, well, you put yourself in that situation. Like, not all the time can you avoid it, but like, dude, you're like, you see a quad in front of you and you like, you know, flick the drone to like cut him off in the gate and you get rear-ended. You're like, oh, you hit me, bro. Like, really, like, you put yourself in that situation. You got to
Yeah.
fly smart. So,
But
I don't know.
you did it with us. You did it with me and Neil at Mayhem. That was 2018 when we had a Texas team. You were watching with us and come on, push full throttle through this gate.
Yeah, but that was because I mean, honestly, why not? That's terrible racing advice. See, you shouldn't have listened to it. You might have won. It's terrible racing advice. We would have probably won that race and not lost by 2 laps if you guys had just. I do remember that though, because I was like,
Yeah.
I think because I just like destroyed all my quads that day, and I think I was just like, after 12 hours I was not locked in, so I was like, I wanted to see other people break stuff, and it was like fun watching you push. But again, that's terrial racing advice.
It was
I
fun.
don't recommend that.
It's
Some people
everyone does the same shit, so like, yeah, it's all right. I think
Yeah,
it's
we all do.
That was fun. Yeah, that was fun. I still remember that one. Vanover tells you to go full throttle, you kind of have to.
Yeah.
Right. I said this to V-Ball recently. He was out practicing, and I literally told him, I'm like, I think it was on the GQ, and I said, no, it was Jay McKibben from Dallas. I said, Jay, I either want your fastest lap of the race or I want a broken quad. It's one or the other. But this
Poor
like
Jay.
qualifying, we're like, and he got the fastest time and broke his quad, so it was a
Oh,
win-win.
got them both.
So,
Whoa, like
he got
what a
both,
giver.
winger dinger through the finish. Like
Yeah.
I told him, I said, I want either your fastest lap or a broken quad trying. So, but that's like that's not like in a race. That's like qualifying or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyways, don't listen to me.
All right, guys. So a quick moment. If you're watching, if you're enjoying it, please put this like button. Maybe share in your, social media and all the other stuff. We need all the likes. And if you allow, Neil, would you allow me to move to a little less serious questions? We got a few of them.
Please,
I
go
have
ahead.
to, So, Mr. Vanover, like, you know what is logarithmic scale, right? Do I pronounce it correctly? Approximately, right?
The what?
Logarithmic scale. Logarithmic.
Sure.
I don't know how to pronounce it. Right?
Yeah, I think I know. Yeah.
Approximately. So on this logarithmic scale that I don't know how to pronounce, from 0 to Elon Musk, how rich you are?
This is anonymous, right?
Of course, it's anonymous. It's just like this anonymous send this question every time to every guest. Like, I don't know who is he.
I don't know how to answer that because I don't know where I'd put myself. Like, it's definitely not Zero or Elon Musk, so I'm just gonna say Elon Musk because why not?
Cool.
I don't know.
All right.
Definitely not though. Definitely
And
not.
so-
Look what FPV can do for you, boys and girls. Like,
Yeah, you can be
right
rich
up
as
with
Elon Musk. Even on logarithmic scale.
Yeah.
So just like you don't have to answer it obviously, but I'm just curious. So like obviously the work in all this Hollywood stuff gives you like a nice income, I would imagine. Is it way more than you selling your frames? By the way, your website is vanistyle.com, right? So guys, check it out. I'm gonna drop the link in the chat.
Vanistyle, and then also now it will redirect you to basically Rec's website, because Rec and Vanistyle are like basically partners at this point. Not basically, we are. So we did that to just side note. We did that because I wanted people to buy all their like stuff from one store. That was a big piece of feedback. And Joshua Roundtree is a big member of the racing community, and my interactions with him have been amazing. And he's really passionate about the brand and helping me grow it. So, and he's taken a lot of the work off my hands. But so go to rec.com/Vanistyle, something like that, or just go to Vanistyle, will redirect you. I'd say like it was the question like about like how much can you make filming? Because I'll answer that if you want.
Whatever you want to answer.
What's
no one
making
will
more?
answer it, but I don't understand why people are so like shy about it, because it breaks it. You have to break your day rate down separately. But I mean, as an FPV pilot, the most day rate I've ever gotten was like $4,000 for one day of shooting, and that was separate from like gear rental. It's like that was what like the production company I was with was paying me, and they actually provided drones, cameras, stuff like that, per my spec, which was awesome. I feel like now the average day rate I can get to fly a Komodo is closer to 20, like on a big movie, like 2,300. They do that because they factor in like some overtime that you'll probably get as well. So it might get closer to like 26, 2,700 even. But I feel like common day rate that I get for most of my work now, like GoPro stuff in Dallas and all that, is probably like with me providing like a GoPro drone and stuff like that, is probably around 1,500, $2,000 a day. Komodo stuff is a little bit more, but that's kind of in the rough range. So it's pretty good if you can get a steady influx of work. But I think what people like, I went through a 9-month film strike. So that sucked a lot because I was living in California because that's where all the work was, but you're paying California prices to live there. And then all of a sudden no work for 9 months. Like literally I worked one day in 9 months. So I got insane at pickleball, which is great. but then I didn't work for 9 months. And so, I was basically almost like homeless by the end of it. So like, I think that my piece of advice to anyone who wants to pursue like the FPV career as a full-time thing is like, when you do have a lot of work, like take every single piece you can get, because the industry does this. And so you have to like, I would look back and say like, I could have like stashed more money aside, like planning for the fact that the industry may not always, because like when I did ambulance and then emancipation and then Gran Turismo, it just felt like it was never going to stop. And then now the whole industry has kind of settled in a bit because of the recent strikes and stuff like that. A lot of work has gone overseas. There's also more FPV pilots who are getting into the industry. So the prices, unfortunately, have gone down a little bit. So, that's what people can expect, a top pilot. I know I can't speak on what other people charge because I'm just like, it's not my information to share. But I can say that like a lot of the top guys are in a similar ballpark. Outside of like Johnny FPV, I know like at least a year or two ago when I talked to him, he was charging some crazy day rates. But that's Johnny FPV. So like, he's working with brands like Red Bull and stuff like that can, for what those types of projects are, then it can afford to pay that. But yeah, that's what people can expect if they're getting into the industry at a high level.
And so, what about your like? Because you're like you have like motors, you have frames that you sell. Do they give you like anything good? Like you don't have to tell the numbers. Just is it something you're just doing for fun, or is still some nice income?
Maybe like percentage of your total income. Like what percentage is like filming?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, so at this point, most people may not know I work at Wing. So like my main day job at the moment is working with Wing, which is a drone delivery company that's a part of Google's Alphabet. That's pretty recent. I haven't talked a lot publicly about it, but I'd love to get into it at maybe another time.
We have a question
really excited.
That. Like we can go there now, or we can wait for it.
We'll circle back to that here just a moment then. But I would say like the Vanny style is probably like 1% of my income. Like I made this like very clear to Joshua and like other people who've been involved with my company thus far. Like anyone who's worked with me on this project knows that I did this. Like I made the frame. Shout out me, Will FPV, Corey Ibanez. I wanted a freestyle frame that suited my needs specifically. It needed to be toilet tank. It needed to fit the DJI 03. It needed to be light but durable. And like, of course, like if I could sell it, that's great. And then the demand for it actually was like really higher than I thought it would be. Like I didn't think I had that big of a freestyle following. Because like all my like sales through Rotoride and stuff are all racing based, so like I was shocked by the frame sale numbers. So it's definitely it's a nice like extra little bit of it's a nice, that's Joshua's idea, by the way. It's a nice little bit of income, but I definitely by no means could live off of it. I'm sure if I like put in all the work and dedication that guys like Joshua and like Evan at 533 did, I could for sure do it, but that's not really my goal with it. And I think that that's part of what I think makes the brand special is that like it's $100 frame, so it's not a cheap frame, but like if you've ever bought a Vanny Style Pro, you'll know like how many extra things come with it. Like I include specific hardware for like the KISS Ultra stack that you would normally have to like go to Pyrodrone to buy separators. Like I try and include as many things as possible to like make the finished product as good as it could be. And so that's reflective in the price, like paying for Joshua's time and like making it at least manageable to do this. But I do not make insane money doing it. I think the most money I've ever like net profited off of Vanny Style in 1 month was like when the Vanny Style Pro came out. I think I made like a couple grand like after it was all said and done, and I was really proud of that. But I mean, like it's not crazy numbers, and I'm not trying to be, so shameless plug, whatever. But yeah, it's a passion thing for me. I would say now Wing is the big part of my income, the majority for sure, because I'm kind of like taking a little break from filming. But like beforehand, film work was like 99% of all my income.
Was it like a lot of hours, just like a lot of hours every day?
Yeah, I would say that. Oh man, my wife would have a better answer to this because I feel like she tracks like how much I'm gone for. Exactly. So I would say the biggest year I had was 2021. I worked like, for example, in July I had 1 day off that year, like 1 day where I didn't work. So it was like that was like most months I was working all but about 4 or 5 days. It was nuts. Really good year for that. And then I think by like 2023, okay, if you like don't include the strike, because the strike's hard to like throw in there, like because I would say that I was probably working an average of 7 days a month, 10 days a month, something like that. And I kind of talked about my day rate, so I guess people can put 2 and 2 together. But yeah, now it's mainly Wing, which is really exciting.
That's cool. So we talked a little bit about Rect, and since we're talking about Rect, we had a question about Jordal. But the question to you. So the question was, what does Vanover like flying more, Spec drones or open class? P.S. Jordal is a shit pilot.
Honestly, I would say that, man, it's weird because I'm going to a Spec race, but recently I've had a lot of fun flying 5-inch open class, just like on a track, not like racing necessarily, just like flying. I feel like it's like really fun right now for me. Like I was like laughing at the summer GQ that they did. I didn't know it was even a GQ that I was going to. I just signed up for a race and it was a GQ. And that was just like funny to me, like hitting full throttle. Like I don't know why it was funny. It was just like really awesome. But in terms of racing, like there's no doubt Spec is like the king of that. Amari and I literally were battling 2 weeks ago, like in training. And I just want to say Amari said like the funniest thing I've heard in a minute. We were racing and I'm not gonna say who it was, but like they were trying to like ask Amari what his like rates and PIDs were, and like Amari and I are like in a blade to blade battle, like touching props. And Amari goes, "I can't talk right now. I'm literally fighting for my life." Like that's how it feels. I bring that up to say like that's how it feels when you're flying a Spec 7-inch quad. Like you feel like you're fighting for your life. Like we're flying a toy drone, but like it feels like you're fighting for your life when you're doing it because like you're just trying to get every little percentage out of that drone in every corner. So yeah, for racing, obviously Spec, but I honestly think if I'm like just out by myself flying a track, and money's not a factor, then like a 5-inch quad is like the most fun I can have.
I think 5-inch quads are very fun to fly, but to me they're less fun to race. And like I think what you said is right, that if we wanted to talk about the best racing that can be had, it's going to be in some sort of slower spec, like where all the quads are the same and you really are just like trying to move inches around with the quads in front of you and around you. Like you just don't get to feel that in open class racing, or I don't anyways. And but in spec racing, like you feel like you're in a race, and I think that's hard to beat.
Well, you kind of showed up to GQ. You hadn't really flown 5-inch in I don't know how long,
and you put like 30 seconds for 3 laps.
3 years.
That was insane.
Like what was up with that? How did it feel?
It felt good. That was a really some people like in this chat I know would love to see like their impression of like what happened, but that was a really frustrating like. So again, 5-inch quads, coming back to it, I underestimated how finicky 5-inch quads can like still be. I thought we were past that. Like I thought that was 5 years in the past now. And apparently ESCs just still die when you like look at them wrong, and like quads just like vibrate when you like bend a prop. And like I feel like now, like a couple weeks past it, if I were to go out with like, I'm not trying to shameless plug like this drone, but like if I went out with this thing right now, I feel extremely confident I could get a sub 30. Like really confident, because now I've dialed in the setup to where I feel good at it. Like when I was flying that night, I did not feel one with the quad at all. I felt like I was just hanging on for dear life the entire time. And in fact, my run, like I have DVR, but my run was literally with like bouncing off the ground in the 3 laps that counted. Because I did like a 9 and like an 11 or something like that.
Yeah.
Wow. So like, and then every other run I just sucked. Like I was pretty funny though. Like I know J-Box would love to say some stuff, but I was literally like, the last run I did like 2 9s in a row and I was on track to one. It was like this stupid last gate of the corkscrew where I hit the ground, and I literally like pull my goggles off. I'm like, I'm going back in retirement. This sucks. Like I hate drum racing. Like I'm like, this sucks, man. I should never have come out of retirement. But I just wasn't consistent because I hadn't been flying. But honestly, I feel like if I were to really pick up 5-inch again and like just do it really seriously, I feel like I could definitely be at least like in the top 5, top 8 conversation. People who are 5-inch pilots in this chat will disagree, but that's okay. They don't have to agree.
What's up?
It's a wild race.
OZR.
Sure.
Do you feel like it's the weight? Does it just feel nice? Like what it is about that formula?
So
and
the
was
quad
that different from what you flew that day? Was that different?
So I flew, and this is no like shameless plug or like insult to 533. I flew an ultra ready to fly, like an ultra V2 ready to fly, because I literally was like, I just want to fly, so I bought quads. So shout out 533 because they were like really fast with them too, and they flew really good. I didn't know, like for example, half the night that my rates weren't even the right rates in there. Like I thought they were. And so I'm like this, I just like didn't feel in control of the quad the entire night. And then also, fun fact, on my ELRS ramp, apparently you have to set an ELRS 1000 hertz preset in Betaflight in order for the quad to not be like super twitchy. So the entire night, like my quad was overshooting and undershooting. And I was like, am I just this bad of a pilot to where I can't fly this? And then finally with 2 runs left, I'm like chasing down these motor vibrations, and I like put a 1,000 hertz preset on and it fixed it. And I was like, I was so angry with ELRS. It's not even ELRS's fault. It's all my fault. It was just lack of education. But I was so angry that was the reason why I just like cost myself 8 runs on the track.
Is it why people asking about Express LRS in the chat? Like, there's
yeah, because I was like, I said some things about ELRS that are not going to ever be public. But all that to be said, OZR. One thing I like about this, like after GQ, I'm like experimenting with 5-inch quads. I got the Chronos, I got this Ultra, and I got a prototype frame that's coming out from Proximo and stuff like that. What I like about the Ultra, what was exciting to me actually watching Johnny's video, was the idea that the stack is not held on by lock nuts. And I hated it at first, but I was like, interesting, because I feel like that would actually make the stack more durable if it could compress a little bit in crashes without like falling apart. And man, I can let people know, like, look at how perfectly straight that stack is. Like, I found the exact right size gummies on everything to make it just perfect. This thing right here is 251 grams with the pad and battery strap, which compared to the Ultras I was flying, which were like 269, like this is way lighter. And this thing with Karate 2024 spicy preset is like insane to fly. I feel so good. I really want to go out and fly the GQ again, because I feel like now I got my camera. I was flying 55 degrees, way too much angle for Vanny style. Like, I'm a low camera angle guy, so for me 50 degrees is like perfect to like feel good with the quad. So hopefully in a couple of weeks, right after, like a week after the Pro Spec race, I'm going to do a GQ again, hopefully. And if the weather's good, I'll fly that, and it'll be interesting. But yeah, I feel great with the quad.
Yeah, there's V-Ball in the chat saying August 17th, you're going to get 3 9s. Everyone can come watch.
Oh,
GQ
in Dallas.
Medieval August 17th.
After.
Yeah. I will be back in the jungle, but Yvonne, you should go.
Yeah, I think I'll go, because it feels like we're not going to set up GQ in Houston.
We should.
You're not going to do it?
I don't know. I hear echo.
I do too.
Oh, like you took your
I'm gonna mute
headphones
myself
off.
because my AirPods died. So.
All right. Yeah. All right. Then when Vanover speaks, everyone shut the fuck up, and then. Yeah. Let's see. We went through most of the questions. Let's just quickly ask you. This is from someone. So what happened with the Sharjah race? Were you invited, or they didn't want you there? Like, why we didn't see your face there?
So yeah, with the Sharjah race, hopefully the echo's not bad. Thanks, guys. Okay, so with Sharjah, I was invited to the race. I wasn't able to go because I was basically on another project that I can't talk about. But yeah, that's why I was really, really bummed, because I felt like Sharjah was the most exciting drone race that's happened in years. So next time it happens, I don't care what it is, I will make myself available for that race. And I've already told Chris that. So, you know, I think like the Pro Spec for me is like my chance to kind of like dip my toes into like what that spec is. And hopefully I can give some feedback to like Shames and the guys, if they're willing to take it, as to like how to make the spec even better than it's already, I feel like it already is.
So is it this the Sharjah race and Pro Spec, that's what you made come back to racing?
I think watching multi-GPIO is like what got me fired up about coming back to racing. Fun fact, I filmed this, like Johnny actually helped me. I filmed this promo video, which I'm not sure if I'm going to release it. I feel like I have to at this point, because a lot of people have like been a part of making it happen. But you'll see, like it's like the problem is it looks way too douchey, but like it's funny to me. But it definitely like I just know there's gonna be some people who get really pissed off about it. Like it's just funny to me. Like, but to the point of what you were saying, yeah, I was watching multi-GP IO, and I watched every event. Like I watched the World Cup from the start to finish. I watched the Pro Spec or the Pro Spec Sharjah race, the Spec race. And I don't know, I think part of it is because I know Chris is putting a lot of effort into multi-GP right now. Like, not that he hasn't in the past, but I know he's like really putting time and energy into like ramping up production level and stuff like that. And the racing just, it felt like it kind of had that spark again that made me feel like I need to be part of it. And I think part of me, was like, I'm sitting on the couch and it was the first time in years where I feel like I was asking myself the question, like, how would I do if I came back? Because I think for years on DRL, my biggest gripe was if the sim was not there, I would win. And points wise, that's true, because you can look at the IRL parts of those race seasons, and that's not opinion, that's just fact. But I feel like the thing was like, if it was only real racing, I would be the best. And so I feel like it's almost necessary to come back. I feel like to a lot of people who have supported me, like companies and individuals, I feel like I owe it to them a little bit, because these people have been with me since day one. And there's a lot of people who've really tuned into me and supported me over the years in many different ways. So part of it is, I feel like coming back for them. A big part of it is just going back to see where I'm at. That's why I said, like, I don't really have a huge expectation. Like, I feel like, I mean, if I wouldn't go if I didn't think I could win. So I'm not trying to like go in and be like, I'm just there to fly and have fun. But I'm definitely going to like be a part of the community again. That's the big thing. Race with all these people, like just have a good time. Like, I think the biggest thing is like going back for the community. And also, I love what Chris is doing. He's trying to make this big production style racing that's like legitimate racing. And so if this is me helping him do that, then I'm all for it. So really excited to see it. It's not just Chris, by the way. I don't want to discount from all the other individuals at Multi-GP as well. So like the entire team there, like I feel like for what they've done for me in the past, I feel like this is also a small way for me. And all the other pilots going to kind of like give back to them as well.
Well, we got karate preset inventor in the chat by himself, and he's asking what are your PIDs. I think he just told that your PIDs are just karate preset PIDs.
There you go. Karate preset with spice.
There you go.
Spice preset. Yeah, and all right. So coming back to silly questions, I skipped this one. So also a question from Anonymous. So if we know scientifically that Betaflight is just better, why still keys? Are you like a flat Earth thing, or like what's the deal?
You got my wife laughing in the background. Man, it just, I don't care. I'll be a flat Earth guy with it. Fine. Right, honestly, I don't. What is the? We cannot get into this discussion because it's gonna go on, because like I understand some of the arguments. I watched your video. I understand some stuff with what people are saying. Like, here's my in-person experience, and also I've done a lot of like freestyle events with people who build quads, like quad camps, rampage, stuff like that. And this has been my firsthand experience. Right? I have never gotten. I build all my freestyle rigs identically, like to the gram. It's crazy. And on Betaflight, I could not make my quads fly identical. I could get them close, but I could never make them fly identical. With Kiss Ultra, they all feel within 1% of each other to me. And like, maybe I might lose a little bit of peak performance, but at least I gain consistency in that sense. I've like, also for me, this is just a small weird thing, but with bent props, I don't burn ESCs. I don't burn motors. My quad can still fly well. Whereas on Betaflight, to get the tune to fly really locked in and crisp and stuff like that, if I like bend a prop and I hit something, my quad like flies into orbit. It like flies really, really bad. I get hot motors, kill electronics. So like, that's just my firsthand experience. Now, a lot of that testing outside of my recent Betaflight build was 2-3 years ago. So obviously a lot has changed. And I think now if we were to go back in time and argue like for freestyle Kiss or Betaflight, it'd be a different conversation as well than it is now. But the reality is what works. And I'm also feel extremely loyal to Alexander Fedorov at Kiss Ultra, because he's just like been like really great supporter of me, always sent me what I needed, like helped me with tuning my quad, getting it to fly better. And I feel like when people watch my videos, the biggest thing people say is like, your quad just looks so smooth. Are you using stabilization, stuff like that? And I'm not. That's how good the quad flies. So
this is, guys, by the way, Mr. Vanover spills the tea, because I thought Fedor Commander never sends stuff to anyone. At least.
He's not just anyone, he's Vanover.
You know, Fedor made me buy my first couple flight controllers, and then one day he just sent me a care package.
Sending
me care packages.
This is the spill the tea.
We got some tea spilled. Good.
Yeah, we got some tea. That's fine. Yeah, I think we're done with goofy questions. Maybe I'll find something else. But why did you leave LA? And tell us about your job at Wing.
I left LA. I will say, like, my wife's gonna throw something at me in the corner because she's a native Texan and so am I. But I would have stayed in Orange County. Like, it's the best place I've ever lived in my life. I don't care what people say about it. Like the food, the weather, the scenery, it's all incredible. I loved it there. Like I didn't really want to move back. The reality is that it's extremely expensive to live there. And then when I took the job at Wing, that was back in Dallas. And so like, that's where my family's at. That's where my wife's family's at. And so it just really made sense to come back. It's also more affordable to live here for sure. And so I felt like looking long-term, it was like the best decision, but I do really miss OC. If like, you know, there was ever an opportunity to go back, I'd definitely like think about it. But I also like feel like family is really important. So being back in Texas, like gives us that. And then as far as looking at Wing, so Wing, just a quick summary for anyone who doesn't know, shameless plug, is a drone delivery company that's part of like Google's alphabet of companies. So they are doing drone delivery for their partners in Walmart and DoorDash right now, all across Dallas, Fort Worth, Melbourne, Australia, Christiansburg, Virginia, plans to expand beyond that. My role with them is pretty mixed. Like there's a lot of things that I do. So I'll leave that for like another time. I think I'm going to do a how's life going video on my own personal channel and kind of talk more about that because I think it'll be a better conversation there as things evolve. But I love working at this company. Like I was really, I was really kind of like just looking for a more steady job because like the film industry strike kind of happened. And I just wanted to like test the waters with a different part of the industry and see if like it would be something I could do long-term. And I did. And now I like love the people I work with. I get to work around aerospace engineers. I get to work around people who are way smarter than me. And I get to be part of something that I feel like is pioneering the future. There's a funny video I need to like send of, I'll have to see if he'll let me use it, but Amari like was up here in Dallas and they got like the Wing drone delivery service sent to them, and their reactions, what makes me love my job. Like it's not like there can be mundane days where you're just like, you know, maybe like part of my job is monitoring drones fly through the air and stuff like that, and that can be a little bit boring, but most of the stuff I get to do is really, really fun, like testing new aircraft and like actually getting to fly stuff and whatnot. So I love it, man. I think that it's part of the future, and definitely for me, like I have to also be a bit of an adult and realize like I need to like I want to have a good job to like eventually like have a family and stuff like that. So that was part of the decision making there too. But now that I'm in the company, I'm like I can't rate it enough. And for all the guys out there with Part 107s looking for a career in the drone industry, keep your eye on that website because Wing pays very competitively, and there's definitely a lot of job opportunity. So that's my big shameless plug. If there's any specific questions, I can answer them. But
yeah, just like what's your role? Sorry, Neil, I was first.
No, go ahead.
I was first. So my role is mixed. So I'm like a pilot operator. So that means I'll oversee the operations for Dallas Fort Worth specifically. So that's like we do. I can't actually say the number of orders, but we've done like 350,000 orders since we started. And we've only really been operating for less than 2 years now.
Damn,
most of those orders have been this year. So there can be 50, 100 drones up in the air all across DFW at one time on a busy afternoon. So I'm monitoring all those drones basically and making sure that weather, airspace, aircraft systems, everything's like in check, nothing's going wrong. That's like a big part of it. And then now I'm doing a little bit more stuff with both flight test engineering side of things and also like going and doing demos. I was just up at EAA Oshkosh, a big air show, and I was doing demos up there and talking to people about the service. And you know, I love talking, so that was a great job for me to do for the 7 days and whatnot. Just educating the public on these kinds of things. And I did FPV shots, so I'm doing FPV shots for the company as well too. So like I'm actually getting to use my role in FPV filming.
That's cool.
And the job too is nice because it gives me a lot of off time, so it gives me time to also do like racing and filming and stuff like that.
So flight operations. So you're monitoring multiple drones in the air. Is there so that it's an autonomous flight, but it's got someone watching over it? Can you
Correct.
take over if there's a problem, or how does that work?
Yep, fully autonomous. The pilot has the ability to like land the drone if they need to, but basically their job is to monitor the aircraft systems and mainly weather and airspace because we share airspace with helicopters. That role right there it's actually a new role that they're offering, but kind of like looking at like the what you'll do and stuff like that and the pay as well. It's pretty similar to like because even though I can't like say what they pay, you can just look at the website. But like that is kind of like if you scroll to the bottom and whatnot, like look at the requirements and stuff, like that is kind of the pay range for starting people at the company. So for people who have a 107 and stuff like that, it is extremely competitive to get in there. I can say that firsthand, but it's definitely a great company and they're doing great things. But yeah, the drones are autonomous. So you're basically just monitoring And eventually they're not going to need like, they don't need pilots right now necessarily, but like a drone can't necessarily read a METAR. Like you can train an AI to read a METAR, but then it's Texas. So if a thunderstorm builds over DFW in 20 minutes, that METAR is outdated and the drone's flying in a thunderstorm, right? So you still need at least a couple pilots per like a big city to monitor the operations. So I think what will happen is like eventually you'll have like all these cities with drone delivery with Wing, and then you'll probably have like on any given day 3 pilots on duty for like half the day monitoring hundreds of aircraft and like in each city. So there are going to be a lot of opportunity within the company as we develop new aircraft and stuff like that too. So.
Well, you are in Texas, and so with these autonomous deliveries kind of going around, have you ever had somebody's angry old neighbor from somebody who's getting a delivery try to shoot it down?
There's a guy in Florida who shot at one and failed to take it out of the air, and he's doing 5 years in prison and a $500,000 fine because it's a federal crime to hit these drones.
So guys, don't try to shoot the delivery drone out of the air. Google will come after you.
It's a federal felony or something.
It's a federal felony, so it's not a good idea. Anyone who does 5 seconds of research will learn that. And so, yeah, that's what I would say to that.
I think even if you're trying to take down the drone that someone flying just like for fun, you still cannot mess with it. I think it's still a federal felony.
Correct.
Don't take my word on it, but yeah.
Is there an FPV feed of it, or are you just tracking the location?
Just tracking location. No FPV feed. We have extremely low resolution cameras on the bottom of the drone to help us as the drones come down on your like driveway or backyard. Make sure we don't like hit anything that like our LiDAR doesn't detect. But yeah, no FPV. It'd be cool. I always talk about it, but no, we don't need FPV on those drones.
That's cool. So guys, don't worry about the delivery drone stomping out on your channel if you're flying in your driveway. There's no FPV being broadcast.
Yeah. It's like it's kind of wild. I always thought that the delivery by drone is like it's like not very profiting. Like you cannot, why not just drive your car there? I understand rural areas where there's no roads, but it's not many of them, and like kind of wild to see the type of big business coming on.
Yeah, but if you don't want to wait for next day delivery, maybe you want like 10 minutes delivery.
Then like what? How many people would be down to pay like $300 for this type of delivery?
Well, 350,000 orders they delivered, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, 350 deliveries. I can speak on and say that like, so I've used the service personally. I love ordering food in. The one thing that I'm not known for is cooking. I'm not that type of person. My wife's laughing in the background. She agrees. I love DoorDash. It's an extremely expensive part of my life that I have to budget. And I try and minimize it. But with that being said, let's say I order a Chick-fil-A sandwich, right? And I order it. I click $3 for priority. I pay the driver $8 plus tips. So you're at $15 plus a $15. So $30 to get a Chick-fil-A sandwich, fries, and drink. And it gets to me in 45 minutes. Like ordering in rush hour time, like 6:30. I could have driven to that location in 15 minutes, but like whatever. So by the time it gets to me, it's kind of like lukewarm, which anyone who knows me personally in my life knows I hate my food if it's not like steaming hot. If it meant to be hot, it's got to be like burning my tongue or I'm like, can't eat it. And the cool thing about drone delivery is that I can make that same order, right? And right now we do this in Frisco, Texas. So we don't do it everywhere yet, but we do like 20 restaurants up there right now. We have like a nest location that's in the middle of all these restaurants. We have bikers who like drive the food. It's like 1 minute from the restaurant to the nest, gets loaded on the drone, boom. And you get it in like half the time. And you like Wing does not control the amount that we charge, by the way, because that's on the merchants. The merchants contract us to do the work. And then, the Hyper is just something else, man. I'm just going to say that off topic. But anyways, all I have to say is like, price, but generally it's a couple dollars to pay for the drone delivery service, and it gets to you in half the time on average. So I love it for that sense. Like it's not more, eventually really cool. It can be more expensive. Who knows? But right now it's definitely not. And so a lot of people who use the service in DFW, they are like reoccurring customers. They may like be cooking dinner at home and they forgot avocados for guacamole. So they get a drone delivered in like 15 minutes with avocados, right? So it's like Wing's not trying to deliver pizzas. We're not trying to deliver 40 pounds of groceries. We're focused on those like smaller items and stuff like that are really efficient to deliver with something like a Wing drone.
Nice.
So I see we have already 2 super chats about camera position. I want to before we go to that, I want to ask. So, like, do you have to live in a certain area, like, to get the delivery from the drone, or like how does it work? What
Yeah, I kind of want to try it tomorrow, but I guess it's not in Houston yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, not in Houston yet, unfortunately. I do know there are plans to go to Houston, stuff like that. So right now it's in probably, I'd say, about 40% of Dallas-Fort Worth. We have like Frisco, Louisville, Flower Mound, McKinney's opening up. We have all of Keller, North Richland Hills, Hearst, like Arlington. We have a pretty big, basically anywhere that's not Class Bravo, we're trying to open up by the end of the year. That's like within a 5-mile location of a Walmart. So we have a beyond line of sight waiver, so we don't have to. We're the first company to get that, so we don't have to have. Now other companies have it too, but like it was cool that we were the first to do that. So I would say that probably by the end of the year, 70% of the Metroplex will have it, and then I know Wing is heavily looking at other cities. There's a lot of factors that go into it, obviously, mainly FAA factors, like what the FAA will let us do. But I know that some locations that have been talked about are. Houston's been talked about. I know Tampa and Orlando have been talked about. Atlanta. So those are kind of the cities I know that they're talking about coming up. So
is your company one of the reasons we have remote ID now?
A lot of people will say that, and I think that it's. So I was at EAA, and there were some RC pilots who came up from the AMA, and they were like, "You're the reason why they're trying to ban everything." Most people don't know who the CEO of Wing actually is. The CEO of Wing, his name's Adam Woodworth, and like. Some other time, you guys got to go look at his Instagram. He makes like flying RC X-wings. Like he is one of the most genius guys when it comes to RC aircraft design I've ever seen. It's like Adam Woodworth. He's the CEO of Wing. And this guy is more passionate about model aviation than I think most people I've ever met. This guy came to Wing. And for example, at Oshkosh, he was very, like when we were talking about doing a demo, we were like, we should do the demo like on the main stage for all these people to see. And he goes, no, I want to do it with the partnership of the AMA and like at the RC field. So these people know that we're not trying to kill the community. Like he's out there, like literally we do the Wing demo. And then 2 seconds later, he's out there flying model airplanes with all these people. Like the company, most of the people who work at the company are either real pilots or they're RC pilots or FPV pilots. So like everyone there has a passion for this, and none of us want to see necessarily like everything get killed. We don't want to see remote ID. We're all realistic about the fact that like remote ID is going to be a part of things because the drone space is increasing. But certainly Wing is like, I know all the individuals personally, and everyone is really, really about, keeping this RC industry alive. Most people fly RC planes on the weekends and stuff like that. So yeah, Adam's a really cool guy. You guys should go check out his Instagram. He makes like TIE fighters fly. Like he's insane. Like I'm really.
I was trying to search for him and I couldn't. Maybe
I'll send you a link on Facebook.
All right, yeah.
If it comes to Houston, I'd love to learn more about that. It sounds like a cool opportunity for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll be posting too more as like time goes on. Like I'm not a hiring manager by any means, but definitely as opportunities come, I'll be posting about them to people I know and like on Facebook and stuff like that.
Nice. Well, so like the chat wants to know, and I think we all also, I would just like to hope that you're going to be realistic and you're knowledgeable and you're going to be one more person that tells Ivan he's wrong about this. That like
we should like, all right, don't tell Vanover like which side we are on.
Yeah, sure. So does camera position within a drone matter for, can you feel where it is? Does it matter for flight performance?
Not camera angle, we're talking about camera position.
Camera position,
a little bit up,
where
a little bit down.
the camera is positioned in the frame. Does it matter? Can you feel it? Does it affect flight performance?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, especially on a Cinelifter, like it definitely makes a difference. If the camera's a meter above the drone like this, and
all right, hold on, not Cinelifters. Let's talk about racing and freestyle. Of course, Cinelifter is like the gigantic drone that hangs.
Well, you asked, so I'm telling you.
No, right,
no. Let him talk. Let the man talk.
No.
Like, yeah, I mean,
keep going.
So I'll start with Cinelifters and say it absolutely makes a difference. With Cinelifters, I try and like get the camera and everything in the prop line as close as possible. Like the La Mamba, which Troy from Quad Standards Labs built me recently, like everything's in the prop line when it flies, and it's a noticeable difference. As far as racing or freestyle, you're asking if it makes a flight performance difference? Come on, no, let's not be silly. I don't know if there's enough on these size of drones. Like, No, I don't know if I would say there's enough on this.
There you
size
go.
to make
There
a
you go.
difference. I mean, that's okay, but that's FPV camera. On a GoPro, like, so I used to, it wasn't actually because of weight initially or like weight distribution, but I used to what I call unicorn mount the GoPro. So basically it's Johnny FPV style where you have props in view normally. So you basically use like 500 layers of foam to mount the GoPro like up here.
Mhm.
So that way you get no props in view at a low camera angle. And you could definitely feel the difference in the way the quad flew. Like it was very like top heavy.
Like, yeah, of course, if you put like a weight,
So, but like on this thing, no, who believes
Yeah.
that this makes
There
a
you
difference?
go.
If I move
There
this
you
down
go.
a millimeter, it's not going to make the quad fly any different. Like,
All
there's
right, guys.
But hang on, are you not going to be able to feel that difference as
I
a
feel like
pilot?
I feel like you can.
I'll see the
feel it.
props being in a different spot in the FPV feed, and I'll probably think to myself, "Oh, it's different." But like, no, absolutely not. I'm why?
There you go. Hyper, you're wrong. You see, Hyper, you're
Well,
wrong.
that's hyper. Hyper, like if hyper feels like I feel like hyper is so in tune with the earth that like if it's like longitudinal axis pivoted, he would feel it. Like that's just Mason though. He's that like
Yeah, that's where it started, because I've heard that Minchin was torturing Hyper with like moving on their new frame, like camera position like down 3 millimeters. And I was like, no freaking way you can feel that. It's just in your head, even if you're Minchin. But to be like contradict with myself a little bit, so I love a lot that Vanover agrees here with me, but also Vanover says that Kiss is better. So like. You know what I mean? Like, can we trust Vanover on a...
You got to fly one of my freestyle builds. You fly one of my I will send you a Vanny style pro frame. I'll send you motors. You can build it the best you possibly can on Betaflight, the best flying quad that you feel like you can make it. And then I'll bring down my personal Kiss Ultra build, and we'll have Neil and Johnny fly them and say which one is better. No OSD, just which one is better.
Like, I don't know, how do you even compare, right? Because you're gonna give a quad to Neil with a completely different rates. How, like, and he's been flown his rates for like 3 years or 5 years. You're gonna give him a quad with totally different
No,
rates?
we just like do different rates. We can just like do stock Betaflight, like not stock. We'll figure something out. Like I understand your point, but like we can. I'm not too concerned with that. We can make it enough. Like, and we can too, just like honestly compare. Like, I would love, like, I think one of the things I've learned in the last couple of years is I'm so open to being proven wrong with quads. I'm just trying to fly the best thing possible. I try and be loyal to the companies that have been loyal to me as well. So there's some biasy there, but like, one of the things I love about Kiss, it's such a shameless plug, but like, I was like listening to my feedback. So like, I love that. You know, it's gotten better because
that's valuable.
The stock tune, why am I getting so fired? The stock tune in Kiss Ultra is literally the Vanny style tune. Like it is. So
I thought it's like Cranked or something he made, or he made presets.
Crank helped me with the tune quite a bit. So.
All right.
He was like, I can't say I tuned it all, but I mean, we came to those tunes, and then they asked like, can we make this like one of the preset defaults? Like people like build these quads at like these events, man. Their quad just works. Whereas like with Betaflight, yeah, it works, but like it's not going to fly as good stock. Like, yes, you can put presets on, but what preset? There's like 5,000 presets. Like,
yeah, that's the beauty. There's like all community build. You find a guy who you trust, you know, and. But I agree that with Betaflight, there's also a problem. There are so many flight controllers made by very different manufacturers, and like they all sometimes are not very trusty manufacturers, you know, whatever they source their parts from. Even the same flight controller can fly a little bit different because, you know, the gyro performs a little bit different or something. So I can see that. And with Kiss, you have a little more control over your hardware.
Yeah, because it's the same flight controller. And I try and build all my racing builds the same way. Like I try and build them with the same exact electronics to make them fly as possibly close to each other as I can do.
Amar is asking Kiss CAC firmware, and I told to Fedor Commander about that many times, and he fulfilled a few of my requests. Not sure if they were only mine, but he said never Kiss, never RPM filters, and never RPM limiter.
Yeah, he is very set in his ways.
And never sliders, never sliders.
Yeah, I do like the sliders. I wish he'd do the sliders. I'll admit that, but I don't need them because the presets just work. So why would I ever need the sliders?
Fedor Commander, you see, this is it. So also,
the
I
final verdict is Hyper's wrong. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Well, Hyper
No.
wrong in one thing, but he's right in another thing, and he's right.
Hyper's he's right in which part?
He's right because he doesn't like keys, and he's right in that one, but he's very wrong in camera position.
But like
He's
with
been
camera
going
position,
off
I will
in the
say like
chat.
it won't change the way the quad actually. Well, okay. If someone said like if you put your camera like up here on the top plate, like yes, like my spatial awareness is going to be different. So yes, like it will change the way I fly the quad. But like okay, I guess it was like again, like if I move this camera down on the standoffs to like the bottom, the props are going to be a little bit higher in the view. Like yes, that changes my spatial awareness, but like that little bit is not changing the way the quad flies. If I put it up here, yes, it's more draggy and my spatial awareness is different. So therefore, like who started this argument? Like this is just such a
It started a long time
Hyper,
ago. Like
Hyper.
I
He's
remember
been saying
me and
crazy
Mason
stuff
and
in the
Yvonne,
chat.
Yvonne and I fought over it for a long time, even before this. And then I stopped arguing with Yvonne about it because it was like you just can't fight with your friend all the time about it. But it was like I remember it was 2020 champs. Maybe it was 2019 champs. It was like when we rented that house out on the bay, and like we're out on the dock, and Mason and Yvonne are just arguing for like an hour out on this dock. And like I was just giggling about it. And like that was the first time that Mason and Yvonne argued about it. And that was 4 or 5 years ago already. And like now it's just been this like perennial argument that we have on damn near every one of our live streams. So it's kind of funny. But I do think that Yvonne's in the minority. Whether or not he's right or wrong.
But the strong one, because in my minority there is Chris Rosser and now Vanover. So like
well, but if Vanover said it mattered, it matters in a big quad, which means it matters.
Well, of course, like you fly a gigantic helicopter. Of course, it matters. We're like, come on, we're not talking about like 3 meters.
Well,
all right, hold on. Before we
have you today, Vanover.
before we finish, I wanted to I think it wasn't even in the list of our questions, but can you just quickly? I know we're all tired. But you were a sponsored Flight 1 pilot. Do you want to comment anything about it? Like,
there's nothing to comment, unfortunately. I will say that like Preston in the day really treated me and other pilots extremely well. I'm talking 2017, 2018. Like he flew me out to his house. I stayed with his wife and his son. Like they treated me super well, gave me whatever I needed. Like those were the glory days. I don't know what happened. I don't want to make assumptions as to what happened. Obviously, there's the reality that a lot of people got scammed, and that's like extremely unfortunate. And I'm like would hold Preston accountable to that if I saw him or talked to him. But it really is unfortunate because I feel like Flight 1 was so exciting. What he was doing like before, like he was doing things like Betaflight has just started to do like recently. Like back in 2018, like we had a GUI that would like set up your whole quad. Like it's different than it is now, obviously, but you get the idea. Like we were doing a lot of exciting things. So that's my comment on Flight 1. It's very unfortunate to me that people got scammed and robbed and stuff like that. I don't know what happened with Preston. I hope he's all right.
Yeah,
That's
but
a good answer.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's a good answer.
Fair.
Yeah,
That's fair.
I'm not gonna push on it all the way I want, but that's it.
Legit,
Yep.
though, this has been a great conversation. It's
Yeah,
been
it was
awesome
This has
awesome.
been great, guys. I'm having so much fun. This
Yeah.
has been wonderful.
Yeah, and Hyper in the chat, I'm sorry, I lost it for like a full minute because he said Lamone's hair went from medieval to full conquistador, and I just couldn't keep it together. Like, I'm sorry.
At some point, the chat was just talking about my hair. I'm like, come on, we got Vanover here. Let's talk about his hair at least. Like,
Yeah, the internet loves your hair, Yvonne. I love that. Like
one day I'll just be bald again. Just
yeah, God, we're all gonna lose it.
yes,
But that is gonna be the next step. It's gonna be.
I'm
Yeah.
working on some IO short stuff, and I have a real chronological timeline of Yvonne's hair. I can't wait.
Oh, nice.
I'll tell you what, if I win the Pro Spec race in Missouri, I will shave my head. I'm telling you.
there you go.
I
Right
will
now.
shave my head if I win.
He's
I
calling.
We
Yeah.
may even do it tonight.
Mm.
Nice.
But now maybe Amari will lose on purpose.
That's fine. I'm kidding.
Yeah, there's too many people there trying to win that race. I don't think anybody's gonna give it up just to see.
Yeah.
Alex.
All right, guys. If you want to
Yeah.
see us racing, like me versus Neil, if you want to see Evan Turner versus Vanover, Amari, Unfortunately, not hyper, but it's coming in less than 2 weeks in Missouri. Go to maltagp.com/prospec, and this is the race. I think they still have a few tickets left.
Oh, fuck,
this-
Amari's not coming. All right, well, boo.
What?
Yeah.
Ooh.
No, Amari's going to this pro spec race.
He says it. He's not coming. What the fuck?
No,
he
that's
just
what
commented.
Sean Ames
he's
is
literally
saying.
coming up to train with me, and he's saying that he's coming up to
Okay,
train with
then
me unless that's
fuck
changed.
that.
in the
He's
last 12
trolling.
hours.
Is he
He's
trolling?
trolling.
I think
No,
he's
he's coming
trolling.
up to train with me like this weekend in Dallas. That's
Yeah.
not
Nice.
happening. And I don't know what Sean Ames is talking crap about, but he says he guarantees I will not win. So apparently Sean Ames is omniscient,
Ooh.
all knowing. So, what about you, Sean? Like, where are you going to finish in that race? Like, that's my
Oh, and maybe
Oh.
now I understand, because do
So-
you know that Sean removed the rule of this measuring contest? So he removed this rule.
Well,
Maybe
that's
he
fair. How
removed.
many DRL races have you won, Sean? Like, come on. How many World Championships have you won? What are you to tell me I can't win that race? Come on.
All right. Well, we're gonna end it on that. That's the spiciest comment of the night. I like it.
Yeah,
Whoops.
All right, we'll see you in Kansas City.
exactly.
Looking
See
forward
you
to
around
it.
Kansas City. And yeah, Mr. Vanover, thank you very much for joining. That was a lot of fun listening about all your stuff. And guys, share this video, put like, subscribe, put some comments under the video. That'd be much appreciated. Thank you very much, guys.
Peace.
See you guys.